Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook Library, a sanctuary of stories where fan fictions come alive, where ancient legends echo from the East and Western worlds awaken with wonder. Settle in. Your journey begins now.
Twilight. Shifting Moon Chapter 61 Port Angeles plans. The next morning, I took my backpack and put it in Charlie's car as usual and then ran off to the spot Jasper and I usually sparred. After looking around to make sure I was alone, I got undressed and shifted into my tiger form. Then for the next hour I just ran around the woods experimenting with my speed and strength. I thought it best to get a handle on it before the vampire versus tiger match Emmett was so desperate for. Learning to strike at a tree without extending my claws was a bit challenging at first, but I got the hang of it after a while. I took a bit more time than normal as I wouldn't be able to do any lifting at the gym. But when I figured it was close enough to time, I got changed and ran to the police station for my shower and waited for Bella to arrive. The skies were clear, so after giving my goodbyes to Charlie and Jerry, I waited for Bella outside in the sun. Bella arrived and we made a beeline for school and decided to waste some time at the outside lunch tables that had most everyone there basking in the morning sun. Mike had come over with a puppy dog look on his face and started to talk to Bella about the weather. Finally, he got to the point and told Bella, "So Jessica asked me out to the dance this Saturday." He ended the sentence like it was a question toward Bella, as if asking if she was okay with it. Bella smiled and happily said, "That's great, you guys will have a wonderful time together." Mike looked a bit sad. "Well, I didn't tell her yes. I said I had to think about it. I was hoping you were going to ask me." He must have finally hit the end of Bella's patience with him because her tone took on a firmness she rarely used. "I am not going to be in town. Besides, it's obvious that Jessica has feelings for you, and I won't be stepping between you two. You should tell her yes if you want to go, and do it soon, so she isn't kept waiting." All Mike got out of her speech was a confused look on his face, and, "Jessica likes me. You really mean it?" Then he stated to smile like a fool. "Cool." He wandered off as I held my laughter in. That idiot doesn't deserve Jessica, or Lauren for that matter. Girls are just interchangeable fantasies for him. Only looking at what he can get from them, not what they can share. Bella sighed. "I agree, but Jessica really likes him. I hope she doesn't get burned by him. All it would take is one mistake, and her college life would be over before it begins, and Mike doesn't strike me as the supportive baby daddy. He is a nice guy, just a bit too popular in town for his own good. College would get him out of town and settle him down, I bet." Shortly after that, Angela and Ben came walking over to our table hand in hand. It looked like they had finally gotten together. Angela looked at both Bella and me. "Would you guys be interested in going to Port Angeles tonight to go dress shopping with me? My mom doesn't want me to go alone, and Ben has to work. Thomas coming along will keep the creeps away also." Bella looked at me, and seeing my nod, "Sure, we can go. I will just let Charlie know, and we can head out right after school. Mind if I ask Jessica to come with? She will be needing a dress too, I bet." Angela smiled. "I am fine with that. Maybe she will drive so there will be more room, and maybe we can get out of there before dark." Bella took the verbal hit to her truck's space and speed with a smile. "I will talk to her in class later, we should know by the end of lunch." Just then, the first bell rang out and everyone started gathering their stuff to head to class. It appeared that the teachers were itching to get out into the sun as well. Ms. Ross had us all go outside to the edge of the forest and pick something to draw. After that class though, it was back to being stuck indoors. At least all the window blinds were open, allowing all the sunlight possible inside. I missed Edythe in math class, and by the time lunch rolled around, I was ready for the day to end. When Bella and I sat at the table with the group, the first thing I heard was, "What, no Cullens to sit with today?" From Lauren. I wasn't sure who that was a jab at, me or Bella, but I didn't take it very well. However, before I could respond, Mike spoke up. "They are our friends and welcome to sit with us when they want. If you don't like it, you are welcome to sit somewhere else." While this earned a bit of my respect, both Lauren and Tyler gave him some dirty looks that he didn't react to. Just before lunch was over, Bella turned to me and Angela. "Oh, about going to look for dresses, can we do it tomorrow after school instead?" Jessica and Mike have a last-minute date planned for tonight. Angela looked happy. Actually, that would be perfect. My mom would be able to look after my brothers, so no need for a sitter. I smiled and shook my head. Looks like it will have to turn into a girls' night then. I have plans with Edythe after school tomorrow. They will get back from their camping trip in the afternoon, so we already made plans. She is planning an evening picnic in a place she says is special to her. This comment got me a few dirty looks, a few envious ones, and a catcall. I just shrugged them off. Gym and Spanish passed in a long, very slow blur, and once it was finally over, Bella and I went food shopping. After putting the groceries away, I went up to my room and stared at another blank canvas I set up for my art project. Still not coming up with any ideas, I walked away from it and sat on my bed with my sketchpad and just started to draw randomly. I heard the house phone line ring a couple of times until Bella answered it. Moments later, Bella yelled up the stairs, "Thomas, phone." It struck me as odd. Everyone I know has my cell number. Why would someone call the house line for me? I hurriedly got up and went down the stairs two at a time, then saw Bella holding the phone towards me as she stood in the kitchen entryway. I took the phone. "This is Thomas." "Hello. Just to confirm. I am speaking to Thomas Raizel." "Yes, that is my full name. Can I ask what this is about?" "I represent the Spector and Ross law firm from Denver, Colorado, and need to confirm your residential city so we can bring you the paperwork to finalize the execution of the will for one Nancy B. Raizel. This will have to take place after your 18th birthday, which we have on file as March 31st. Can you confirm this is correct?" "Yes, my birthday will be the 31st of this month." I responded dully. In cases like this, we prefer to set up a time at the local police station so that all parties can be accommodated, and any certifications can be made immediately if they prove necessary. You will need to be present and have your social security card as well as photo ID and, if possible, your birth certificate. Will that work for you? For photo ID, I have a non-local driver's license. It's an Arizona registered license. Oh, I also have a passport. That's a picture ID also. I forgot about it. My mind was racing, and I was stumbling over my words. Random thoughts were hitting me as I tried to focus. As long as they aren't expired, either would work, hun. Will the 1st of April work for you? What am I thinking? It's your 18th birthday, so I'd better give you a day to recover. How about the 2nd and I will call you with a time once we set it up with the sheriff's office. That will be fine. Hope to see you there. As I took the phone from my ear and began to hang it up, I caught, "Are you okay, dear? You don't sue." Click. I barely registered that I had hung up on her and just stood there. Chapter 62 More nightmares. My ribs felt like they were on fire. My left leg and right arm were numb and not responding very well. Someone pushed me aside as they got up and ran away. People were crying all around me. My mind couldn't make sense of what was happening. My eyes focused on the strangest things, like a little girl lying in a pool of red liquid had mismatched socks on. My mother would never let me outside without matching socks. A man ran past me with a purse in his hands. I wondered if he stole it and that why he was running. Men don't carry purses. Johnny made fun of me for carrying a bag. He said men only carried a briefcase or backpack. My ears started ringing, like I was too close to a bell. Mom. I looked around. I tried to slide away from the people on the ground. Johnny was going to make fun of me for sliding on my butt like this, but my leg won't work. I wish Mom would stop seeing him or at least stop bringing him around me. I felt someone touch my shoulder and turned to look. Mom. She hugged me and cried at the same time. "Come on, sweetheart. We need to get out of here. My leg won't work. I really hate Johnny. Can you stop seeing him? He kicked my leg and made me fall. Yes, I promise he will never be around us again." Good. That's what I wished when I blew out my cake candles this year. Okay, honey, let's try to hide. The bad people could see us any minute. She tried to pull me, but she didn't have the strength. I wasn't going any faster than I had been by sliding on my butt alone. I still tried to help her as much as I could. I looked down and tried to slide my butt the way she was pulling, but then something wet splattered on my head and I heard 3 bangs really close together. Or did I hear the bangs first? The next thing I knew, Mom fell over the top of me and lay down. Her eyes were open, but they didn't see me. I managed to get my knee under me and lean towards her. My working arm tried to shake her. Mommy. Only babies cry for their mommy, Thomas. Shut up, Johnny. Mom said you won't be around anymore. So go away. I looked at the red pool forming around my mother. Blood isn't supposed to look like this. In the games, it's a much brighter color. Isn't it? I heard footsteps coming towards me. Time seemed to skip, and I found myself looking up at the barrel of a rifle, and then I heard another bang. The man with the rifle dropped straight down, falling on my mother's body. I started to hit him with my good arm, but he wouldn't move, so I used the one I couldn't feel very well. Get off my mommy. Get off of her. A fire seemed to erupt in my head as this man wouldn't get off my mother. I kept hitting him and screaming in anger, until my right arm looked weird. It was still numb, but now I saw something white sticking out of my skin. Even as I looked at the bone sticking out of my right forearm, I kept screaming for the man to get off my mother and hitting him with my left fist. I didn't hear anyone approach over the sounds of my screaming in rage, but I felt someone putting their hand on my shoulder. You're safe now, son. My name is Officer Randall. The man in a police uniform looked at me, asking me something or telling me something, but I didn't understand him. Get him off my mom. Please. The officer realized what I was doing and helped me push the man off my mother. Then he turned his head and started to puke next to us. I watched as he vomited twice more and then started to dry heave with tears running down his face. He quickly wiped his mouth on his sleeve and turned to me. You stay here, I have to see if there are more of them. Someone will be here to help you very soon. He then started to move deeper into the mall, and I was alone with my mother. My eyes popped open, and my breath came in fast pants. I tried to settle down and take deep breaths to regulate my thundering pulse. Then a thought broke into my head. Why am I staring at a wall instead of the ceiling? I started to swing my head around and again felt something was just slightly off. Then it hit me. I shifted. There was now a 3-meter tall, 6-meter long, Bengal tiger lying in my bed, and I was down another pair of sweats. A deep exhale came out as a growl that I quickly tried to stop midway. The last thing I needed was for Bella to hear me and come in to comfort me, only to see me like this. It took me about 5 minutes before I had calmed down enough to change myself back to human form. That could have been very bad. I looked at the time and saw it was less than 3 minutes before my alarm went off. I hid it early and gathered some clothes before heading to the bathroom. Washing my face, I pushed away the thoughts about what could have happened. I knew my dreams would come back heavy around this time of year, but before I didn't have the potential of turning into an oversized cat. I relaxed my mind and went about my morning routine to further calm myself down. Once I had eaten, I put my bag in Charlie's cruiser and ran into the woods behind the house. Taking a page from Sam, I had brought a band to tie my shorts around my leg before shifting and blasted through the woods. As I ran, I felt a pressure against my mind that signaled Sam was out this morning as well. I reached out to him and he accepted me into his mind. Morning, Sam. How's your morning going? Morning. What time is it? Almost 6 in the morning. What did you do? Lose track of time. Yeah, Emily is still being difficult. So, I needed to run some energy off last night. Must have lost track of the time. Some of what she says is pretty hurtful, even though I can tell she doesn't really mean it. She just loves Leah so much and feels like returning my feelings would be a betrayal. At least that's what I think. I pray to God that imprinting is only a wolf thing. No way I want to have that happen to me. I kept that thought away from Sam. The idea that my own nature could dictate who I devote myself to was a scary thought. What are you doing so early in the morning? Sam broke into my thoughts. I usually exercise in the morning, but my partner isn't here today, so I'm just spending time shifted to get used to it more. I went on to explain how Jasper has been helping me work out and some of the training we did. Sam just went quiet as he listened. How can you stand to be so close to a leech like that? Aren't you afraid he could lose control and attack you, drink your blood? I tried not to take offense at the term used against my friend, not really. To be honest, when Jasper struggles with his thirst, it makes me appreciate him that much more. Just think of how hard they must fight to swear off their natural food source for something less appetizing. Just imagine, with our increased hunger as shifters and someone made your absolute favorite dish and placed it in front of you. But you made yourself fight the urge to eat it and reach over it to eat something you can barely stomach. Then throw in the idea that you are starving all the time. I let that sink in for a moment. The fact that they fight so hard against their nature just shows how strong their commitment to not being a monster is. To Sam's credit, he thought a while before replying, "The fact that it's their nature to feed on humans is what gets me, Thomas. It isn't natural to my way of thinking. One slip on their part and it means a life has ended. No matter the remorse they may feel later, they are still dangerous. That will just have to be something we disagree on, Sam. I hate to put it out there, but I think if I was able to imprint, I would have imprinted on Edythe already. I just can't see a life without her anymore." Sam's reply stunned me to the core and caused me to stumble as I walked through the forest. I felt that way about Leah once too, Thomas. Then I felt him break our connection. Chapter 63. Her brother's jeep. An hour later, and Sam's words still haunted me as I trotted through the woods. The only thing keeping me from a full-blown panic was the knowledge that wolves in nature, mated for life, and tigers were more open with their relationships. Not having prides like lions, but having multiple partners that they returned to during mating seasons so long as the female stayed in the male's territory. Wow, this could get complicated. Let's hope my more human nature overrides my need to mate with every strong female I come across. Still, it is something I need to talk to Edythe about. On a less emotionally explosive subject, I had found that while I could move exceptionally fast, it was only for a short time. My body was definitely not built for long-distance running, only able to keep top speed for about 10 minutes. That may not sound like long, but it only took me 4 minutes to get to the other side of the Quileute Reservation, and that was not starting from the border but much deeper in the woods. I also had a comfortable trot that I could move at when I wanted to cover distance, but my natural speed was a sort of lazy walk that challenged anything near to get in my way. Tigers, it seemed, were not in a hurry unless it came to hunting or fighting. Having my shorts tied to my leg was a bit hard to get used to and would not be something I did on the regular. I think I may put a few caches of clothes out in backpacks like I had thought about before. Get some waterproof ones and find good spots to get them when I need to. One near the house and one near the school would be a must. I dropped this line of thinking when I came near the edge of the forest closest to the police station. Shifting back and putting my shorts on, I realized it would be hard to explain my lack of shoes if anyone noticed. Yup, simply carrying shorts around on my leg was just not going to cut it. I walked in and was in luck. Charlie was in his office doing paperwork. "Morning, Charlie." I called out and moved straight to the locker room to shower and get dressed. When I came out, I saw Jerry putting her purse in her desk drawer and greeted her. Then went to Charlie's office. When I walked in, he looked up from a file on his desk. "Hey kid, still enjoying the sunshine? Haven't seen much of it yet today. I ran in the woods for my morning workout." "Don't worry, I didn't go too deep, just wanted to change up my run this morning." Charlie just gave me a wry smile. "I just ask that you stay safe, kid. Way too many people get lost in the woods. Best to keep to the trails. Damn fool part-time hikers get lost all the time and we have to hunt them down and save their lost as selves. Don't want you disappearing on me." "No worries. Did Bella tell you about the phone call yesterday? About my mom's will reading?" "Yeah, we talked about it some. I will keep an ear out for their call. I didn't know something like this would need to take place at a police station. Weird to me, but it's big city rules, I guess." He just shook his head. "I am not sure what the deal is either. Not like Mom was some big-time CEO or rich woman with huge money. Only thing I have seen about her insurance was the monthly care money Renee got, and well, now you are getting since I moved here." Charlie looked uncomfortable for a moment. "Well, about that, Renee and I were planning to wait, but I guess it won't hurt to tell you early. The money sent for your care has all been put in a savings account for you. We thought it best to help you prepare for college or whatever you wanted after school. I know Renee had to dip into it a couple of times when things got tight in Phoenix, but we wanted to give you the best start possible. Also, Renee and Nancy's childhood home is still here in town, and I figure that may be what the lawyers are coming here for. Your mom bought Renee's share of the house and land when Renee made it clear she wanted to move somewhere warmer. I am assuming that will come to you after your birthday, but I hope you will consider staying at my place until summer or you are out of school. A big change like that could mess with your schooling. I had never really thought about that. Technically, with this birthday, I could live on my own. I would be a legal adult. I took a deep breath. I haven't ever thought about it, to be honest. I have never thought about being on my own. I have been so dependent on Bella and Renee, and now you. It's strange. I shook my head, seeing me struggle with my thoughts. Charlie spoke. No rush, kid. You are welcome to stay, like I said. Bella would probably have an opinion to share on the idea herself. You're the brother she never had. Speaking of Bella, she just pulled up. Thanks. I guess I have a lot to think about. See you at home. Not today. I will be doing a double. You will be home alone with Bella going to Port Angeles to shop. Call me if you need anything. Will do, but I will be spending time with Edythe, so I should be okay. He smiled and shook his head. Don't do what I did. Be safe and take it slow. Bella double tapped Red's horn, and I raised my hand to Charlie. Later, don't work too hard. The ride to school was quiet. Bella seemed like she had something on her mind. Something she was working through. I left her in peace and tried not to think about seeing Edythe later today. That would just make the day drag on longer. As we started to walk away from Bella's truck, she handed me her keys. Jessica, Angela and I are going shopping right after school, so I will need you to drive my truck home. I think I will go to a bookstore while I'm there. I found one that has a book about local legends that I think would be interesting. Want me to look for anything for you? No thanks, sis. Just have fun and be careful. The day went by fairly quick. The girls were all discussing dress and skin tone color matching along with hair salons in the area. I just relied on my old head nod and half-hearted answers that seemed to go along with what they wanted to her. Before I knew it, I was driving old Red back to the house by myself. The sun was out, and everyone had their vehicle windows down and their music as loud as it would go as they drove. Maybe I should get Bella that new stereo. There is lots of room behind these seats for good speakers as well. Lost in my thoughts as I pulled in front of the house, grabbing my school bag and slamming the truck door closed, then made my way inside. I was debating calling Edythe to let her know I was home and see what she had planned, but resisted doing that right away. I instead went to the kitchen and made a few sandwiches that I took to my room and ate as I prepared for my date. About 30 minutes after I got home, Edythe called. After talking, we decided she would swing by in her brother's Jeep, and we would drive part way to where she wanted to take me. Because the sun was still out, she would have to stay inside the vehicle in town. She explained that only direct sunlight made her stand out, so she didn't stand out behind the windows when driving, even with minimal tint. Not long after hanging up with her, I was holding my backpack and standing on the front porch waiting for the modified red Jeep Wrangler she described to me. My excitement for the evening's revelations made it hard to stand still, so I was pacing a bit as I heard a loud engine approaching. Chapter 64. The least human. Edythe parked up under a canopy of trees. My bones were still rattling from the four-wheel driving course she had just driven. I was sure the Jeep would need a new set of everything that was related to the wheels or shocks. The 8-point harness was worth every minute it took me to put it on. As she turned the vehicle off, Edythe spoke. There were a few new ruts since the thaw. Guess I could have taken it a bit slower. But it was fun, right? I took my hand off the aptly named, oh shit, handle and gave her what I hoped was a convincing smile. I think I prefer to run through the forest on foot. Vehicles should be going fast on the road, not up and down mountains. I had been more uncomfortable going down the trails than going up them, surprisingly, but either way wasn't going to get added to my do again list. But still, I liked that she enjoyed it. As I started to take my harness off, I looked at a big clearing not far from us. It was easily a 100-yard clearing that was fully illuminated by the sun. Is this clearing our destination? Edythe glanced at the clearing. No. This is where my family plays baseball and sometimes football soccer when we have friends over. Emmett managed to make a ball that didn't explode every time we kicked it. He was very proud, and that was what started him looking into different alloys and materials for a hobby. We can get a good game going when there are thunderstorms in the area. You wouldn't believe the noise we can make during a game. It struck me as funny, the idea of vampires getting together to play sports. That is something I would have to see. I wonder if I would be able to compete. Edythe chuckled. Baseball maybe, but the football would probably break your foot if you tried to kick it. She opened the driver door, so I followed and got out of the passenger door and walked around to where she was standing. I looked at my phone and saw we had about 2 hours of light left. So, where to then? Trail guide. There is a spot about 3 miles east of here that I would like to get to. If we had a full day, I would have taken you to some natural hot springs I found in a valley, but that will have to wait for another day. My mind ran a little wild at the idea of the hot springs, Edythe in a bathing suit, Edythe not in a bathing suit. Ah, the possibilities. I reined in my imagination and was once again glad she couldn't read my mind all the time. While I was dazed thinking about the springs, Edythe grabbed a picnic basket from the back of the Jeep and rejoined me. If we take too long, you may have to shift to get there before the sun gets too low. You lead and I will follow. Dear gods, I was sounding hen-pecked already. Edythe started walking away from the Jeep, and I followed. We moved at a good pace for about 45 minutes, and I had already decided that on the way back, it was going to be on all fours for me. My slow tiger walk was twice as fast as this. We could make the trip in minutes at a full run, if not faster. The only thing making this bearable was watching the figure walking in front of me. She wore hiking boots, skin-tight blue jeans, and a cream-colored button-up shirt that was tucked in. Her hair was in a ponytail, minus the few strands that escaped to flow in the air. A true vision of beauty in my eyes. Before I knew it, Edythe turned and started straight up a mountainside. It's just up here. As I followed her, the climb got a bit rougher, requiring my hands as much as my feet in places. But when we got to the top, it reminded me of standing on a tower. The top was clear of any trees, and you had a view of the surrounding mountains. I looked around and saw clouds hanging in nearby valleys, and the colors of spring were everywhere. It was a wonderful view. I turned to share my excitement with Edythe, but as I was turning, she quickly said, "Don't. Not yet. Please." I froze where I was, forcing my eyes not to turn towards her. I wanted to assure her that nothing the sun could show me would make me think any less of her, but my mind was only coming up with lame assurances. Edythe, it's okay. You don't have to worry. I heard some cloth rustle, and my hearing took in the sound of buttons sliding through cloth. I took a deep breath and swallowed. Okay. I think I'm ready. I looked at the ground and turned in her direction fully, intending on looking up slowly. But a sparkle drew my eyes, and before I could stop myself, I looked directly at her, taking it all in. She had taken her shirt off, and all the skin that the light touched glittered like a polished stone. Colors I couldn't immediately recognize sparkled off her skin, jumping out at my eyes and messing with my depth perception. The curves of her face were almost mirror-like as they reflected the sun, but the even spots just sparkled. Every color was a shade of white and yellow at different spectrums. She held her arms over her chest, though I could see glimpses of what looked like a sports bra beneath them. Her eyes were closed, and she looked like she was about to step back into the shade of a tree. Everything about her right now screamed vulnerable. The closed eye, the trembling chin, the slightly turned head as if waiting to hear words of disappointment or horror. I moved towards her and put my hands on her shoulders. She almost flinched away. You are gorgeous, my sunshine. Her eyes opened, and I saw hope there and questioning. Her eyes asked if I truly meant it. So, I answered in the best way I knew how to. I leaned towards her, and pulled her towards me, at the same time, and pressed my lips to hers, like I had wanted to do for a long time now. The last thing I saw before closing my eyes was the shock in hers. Her lips felt a little stiff but pleasingly cold at the same time. I knew my body temp ran hot now, and kissing her was like pressing an ice cube to my lips. It tingled and was a little numbing afterwards. My hand slid off her shoulder and connected behind the small of her back as I pulled her closer, deepening the kiss. I felt her lips open, and her tongue gently touched my lips, as if asking them to open. My own tongue separated my lips and met hers. Slowly they caressed each other. It was a very long time before we separated, her not needing to breathe and me not wanting to, combined with my increased lung capacity, made for a very long first kiss. There was no seeking for dominance with our tongues, just a gentile probing, a need to explore the other. I briefly wondered if the saliva would be poison to me, but nothing felt off yet, so I gave it no more thought. I don't know how long it was before we separated, but we both had saliva lingering on our lips and faces when we did. When I opened my eyes again, I looked down at her and smiled. That had felt wonderful. I hoped it felt the same to her, but didn't want to break the moment by asking. I also didn't want to move because as I looked down at her, I had a great view of her cleavage in her bra. Her chest was pressed against me, and the squishing was making all sorts of wonderful gaps in her bra. I think I underestimated her at a small C cup. She had to be pushing the next size up. My wandering eyes had started to make my body react, and not wanting her to notice, I shifted and tried to adjust my midsection so my growing problem wouldn't be pressed against her. Either she noticed or she just took that moment to pull away and reach for her shirt. Again, I wasn't going to ask her. Giving her a moment to put her shirt on without me watching, I again turned my attention to the view of the mountains. Moments later, Edythe came to my side and wrapped my arm over her shoulder as she wrapped hers around my waist. She leaned her head into the side of my chest and began speaking. Under the sun is where I feel the least human. Every other action, including hunting and drinking blood, can be done by humans. But only vampires sparkle that way. I still found you beautiful, no matter what, you are Edythe to me. My sunshine. Under the clouds or the sun, I will never not see you as the beautiful woman I am head over heels for. I pulled her closer to my side. Chapter 65 Tag, You're It. As the sun began to sink behind the tallest mountain in the area, its waning light shone on Edythe and me as I ate the dinner she packed for me. We sat on a blanket and held each other as if afraid the other would escape without the contact. Edythe broke the silence. We should head back soon. You will have trouble moving through the forest if it gets dark. I smiled. The way I plan to head back, the lack of light won't bother me in the least. So, there is no rush. Unless you have something to do. No. That's fine. I kinda forgot about that. I was focusing on just the moment, I guess. She laughed at her last comment. A short time later, the sunset faded behind the mountains fully, and I reluctantly let Edythe slip from my side as I needed to move to the treed area so I could remove my clothes. The only issue was that it didn't really offer much privacy. My face flushed as I turned to look at Edythe, and she gave an exaggerated sigh and turned her back. As I stripped down, I was pretty sure I saw her turn her head a few times, but she was too fast for me to be sure. Internally, I shrugged my shoulders, not like I was losing anything from her looking. After stuffing my clothes in my backpack, I made the shift and picked up the backpack in my mouth. Edythe walked over and offered, I can carry that, it won't bother me in the least. I let it go, and she slipped it on. Then, with a mischievous look in her eyes, she reached out and tapped me on the head. Tag, you're it. Then she made a run for it. I was startled for a moment by the gesture, and then I gave chase. I heard her moving before I saw her. She was an arrow in the air. The sound she made while running was loud to my ears. It didn't take long to catch up to her at my top speed, but the sight of her butt as she ran made me not want to pass her. For a moment, I thought about just keeping this view for a time, but then I heard, you can touch it, if you can catch me. Damn, I forgot she could read my thoughts in this form. Good thing she couldn't when I was checking out her chest in her bra. A quick stumble from Edythe showed me that I was dumb to think that now. Well, she offered. I quickly lined up a good angle to catch her and gave it all I had. Just before I was about to reach out and tap her, we broke into a clearing next to the jeep. Edythe raised her arms. Ha, I win. I leapt onto her, knocking her to the ground, standing over her. I thought, you didn't make it to the jeep though. Then I gave her a long, wet lick with my tongue, keeping it flat so the barbs of my tongue didn't scratch her. She broke out into peals of laughter. Fine, it's a tie then. Once I let her up, she handed me my backpack. I took it into my mouth and moved into the woods to get dressed. Once we were back in the jeep, we drove back to Charlie's house, and Edythe pulled into the driveway. Before I could invite her in though, Edythe's phone rang. She looked at who was calling and answered it. Hey Alice, I just pulled into Thomas's driveway. What's up? There was a moment of silence, and I saw Edythe clench her teeth. Is she okay? Did he get there in time? Then her body relaxed. That's good. Yeah, I'll be there in a few. Then she hung up. I need to head home for a bit, but I would like to come back tonight. If that's okay with you. I looked into her eyes. Of course you can come back. Want to share what happened? You looked serious. She took a deep breath. Everything is fine. No one was hurt. Yet, I will tell you everything when I come back. I don't want to give half-assed information. I promise to explain later. I nodded, a little suspicious. I will be waiting for you. I will be back as quick as I can, Tiger. She leaned over and gave me a soft kiss goodbye, and as she pulled back, her whole body shivered. The heat of your lips drives me crazy. Better get inside so I don't have to worry about anyone else finding trouble tonight. A bit mystified by her words, I climb out of the Jeep and head for the house. She didn't move the Jeep until I opened the door to the house, even though I didn't close it until she was out of sight. I left it unlocked for Bella, unsure of what time the girls' night would end. I made the drive home as quickly as I could. Outraged by what Alice told me she saw nearly happen to Bella. How could that idiot be so close but still allow her to be in danger? I planned to have a few choice words with Brother Dearest about this. A small part of me wondered if Rosalie would lay off Bella now that they came so close to having the same fate. But I doubted it. My sister is all kinds of stubborn and, dare I say it, jealous at times. It would be hard to imagine for all the girls in school to realize that their jealousy towards Rosalie was returned tenfold by Rosalie herself. Their ability to have a family that so many took for granted was the one thing Rosalie would give up everything, including Emmett, for. My thoughts were interrupted by Alice as I parked Emmett's Jeep in the garage. My mind entered hers as I saw what triggered the night's events for Bella and her narrow escape with Edward. She knew Alice had tried to call Edward, but he didn't answer, and now it was a waiting game for him to return on his own. Alice looked her sister over closely. It looks like you had an interesting date with Thomas today. Wasn't that shirt tucked in when you left? I hate that he blocks my visions, it cuts into my teasing time. Tell me all about it while we wait. Knowing that she wouldn't give in until I told her something, and my own desire to share the wonderful events of the evening. I spilled it all to her. The acceptance, the fiery kiss that felt like it would melt my lips, catching him looking at my breasts and his hardening reaction to that. I held nothing back, even describing how comforting it was to be held in his arms. The contrast of our body temperatures was amazing. His always being a hot 107 degrees now, and my skin taking on the ambient temperature, proved a volatile combination. Their chatter and the subject they were discussing drew Esme from the house to join in on the girl talk. Edythe felt just a little closer to them both now that she was beginning to understand their connection to their own mates. It is one thing to intellectually know something but another thing entirely to feel it in the same way as others, at least to a degree. After about an hour, Alice asked Esme, "Would you ask Carlyle to come out here? Edward will be here in a few moments, and he is having a bit of a crisis right now." "Of course, Alice. We will be right down." Before the door even closed, Edward pulled up and got out of his car. Alice watched him approach. "Carlyle is coming down." He tousled her hair with his hand as he said, "Thank you. Thanks for returning my call," she said with a bit of sarcasm. He pulled out his phone and flipped it open. "Sorry. I didn't even check to see who it was. I was busy." "Yeah, I know. I'm sorry too. By the time I saw what was happening, you were already on your way." It was close." He whispered as if afraid to say it too loud. "Sorry," she said, sounding ashamed of herself. Edward took her hand, and I put mine on her shoulder. "Don't be. We know you can't catch everything. No one expects you to be omniscient, Alice," I said. Alice and Edward had a quick mental conversation between each other before I could reach out and listen in. They had become experts at this, probably why they were so close. The only thing I caught was, "You will be with her soon enough. Just go with Carlyle and get the small stuff out of the way." As if he too heard his name, Carlyle walked out the door at that moment. He brought with him a sense of peace and wisdom that seemed to follow him. Edward spoke out loud, "I need help." "Anything, Edward," he quickly promised. "Did Alice tell you what happened to Bella tonight?" "Almost happened," Carlyle amended. "Yes, almost. I have a dilemma, Carlyle. You see, I want, very much, to kill them." His voice went passionate as he spoke faster. "So much, but I know that would be wrong, because it would be vengeance, not justice. All anger, no impartiality. Still, It can't be right to leave a serial rapist and murderer as well as his gang wandering Port Angeles. I may not know the humans there, but I can't let someone else take Bella's place as their victim. Those other women in town, it's not right. Carlyle unexpectedly smiled and embraced Edward. She is very good for you, isn't she? So much compassion, so much control. I'm impressed. I'm not looking for compliments, Carlyle, Edward responded to his father's praise. Of course not, but I can't help the way I feel now, can I? Over the next few minutes, the pair came up with a plan to deliver the guilty to the police in another state after rendering them unconscious. That way it wouldn't make the local news and cause rumors in the area. Knowing that they had it covered, I went upstairs and changed into clean clothes after a quick shower and made my way to Thomas's window. Chapter 66 Hot Chocolate Thomas Pov Edythe's reaction to her phone call and the comment about another person finding trouble made me worry for a time. But I assured myself that she would have told me right away if it was serious. Still, I had to admit I am a little anxious for Bella to get home so I know she is okay. I went to my room and spent some time staring at my blank canvas yet again. I was trying to think of a way to put the music of Edythe's voice on the canvas. The sound of her moving through the forest, her laughter, everything about her. But I just couldn't make it go from my head and heart to the canvas. About 45 minutes later, my thoughts were interrupted by the closing of a car door and shortly after that the opening and closing of the front door. Bella, is that you? I yelled from my room. No, I'm a random burglar using the door to break into the chief of police's house. Came the reply. In that case, all the valuable stuff is in the room across from mine. I shouted back. Our playful banter was interrupted by the phone ringing in the kitchen. I heard Bella answer it as I stood up and started down the stairs. When I got to the kitchen, I saw Bella talking on the phone in a low tone as if she didn't want to be overheard. Hey sis, how was the girls' night out? I said loudly. Turning to look at me, she replied to the voice on the phone, yeah, got to go. See you tomorrow in class. Then she hung up the phone. What? It was a question and a challenge at the same time. I smirked at her. Sue, was that Jessica on the phone? Because if it was, then she got home awful fast for just dropping you off seconds ago. Also, didn't you have a jacket today? She gave me what I'm sure she thought was a fierce glare. Shut up. I just laughed at her. So, how was your evening of dress shopping? It was fine, I got a little lost after the bookstore. But I ran into Edward, well he found me. But I had a good talk with him. He even drove me home after dinner. My jacket is in Jessica's car, and she will bring it to school in the morning. Let me get settled and then can we, maybe talk? Sure, I'll make us some hot cocoa while you get comfortable. We can sit in the living room and talk. That sounds great, Bella said and started for her room as I made my way to the cabinet. I filled the kettle and put it on the stove to get the water hot, as I heard Bella start the shower. We both had chosen our favorite coffee cups in the house, and when I opened the cocoa packages, I took all the marshmallows out of mine and added them to hers. I found them flavorless, but she loved seeing them in her cup. Not long after that, the kettle started to whistle, and I took it off the burner and filled the coffee cups. At almost the same time, Bella came down the stairs and into the kitchen. I took both cups in my hand and said, why don't you let me carry these to the front room? You have your brush in one hand, and you aren't the most stable at carrying hot things in one hand. I don't want to have to start over after cleaning the floor. She rolled her eyes. Fine, but I'm not that bad. As if the gods of irony were listening, when she turned to leave the kitchen, she stubbed her toe on the entryway and dropped her hairbrush as she started to hop around in pain. After steadying herself, she shot me a glare, not a word. I tried to keep my mouth closed, but a snort of amusement made it through anyway. She reached down and grabbed her brush and limped her way to the couch. I waited until she was sitting and gave her the hot chocolate and took Charlie's chair. Once seated, I took a sip and sighed with enjoyment. Bella tried hers, but it was still too hot for her, so she started to blow on it. So, what's up, sis? Bella took a moment and then asked, do you believe in the supernatural? I knew where this was going and could give her the answers she was looking for, or I could help her work it out on her own. Being a firm believer in the knowledge you work out yourself is better than answers given to you, I replied with, You mean ghosts and Bigfoot type stuff or aliens? She hesitated. Just, not human. Others, I guess. Do you believe in them? Without a doubt, I do. There is so much of this world that we know nothing about. Most of humanity is so busy looking to the stars when we know almost nothing about the deep ocean or even the deep forests of our own lands. There has to be stuff we don't know about. What brought this up? Would it matter to you if someone was not normal, but other? I don't think it would, to be honest. I like to think that I treat people the same way they treat me. I hope I would be understanding of someone different. I guess it's like people with different skin color in a way. I don't think I treat anyone differently because of their race, but I treat them the way they act towards me. If they are respectful, I am the same, but if not, then I will try and avoid them and stay away from them. She thought for a moment and took a sip from her cup. What if someone was a werewolf? Would you be okay with that? Well, let's go hypothetical here. If the werewolf killed randomly or for amusement when transformed, I would say it was a danger to be contained or put down. But if they could control themselves, then I don't think it would matter to me. What about you? Would you leave me because you found out I was a weretiger or something? She laughed. I think I am the same as you. So long as the other wasn't out to hurt me or mine, I wouldn't care. So long as they were good. I guess. But what if other weretigers, I don't know, hunted people for food? Would that be okay with you? I gave a deep sigh. Now we are getting philosophical, sis. You could break it down to the vegetarians and hunters argument here, and I just don't have a blanket answer. A hunter who kills for the enjoyment of taking a life and leaves it to rot is very different than the hunter who kills to provide for himself and his family. But if humans can survive without meat, then is killing truly necessary? I paused as I took a sip from my cup. There are many animals in the world that are omnivores like humans, and they have no qualms about killing to fill their bellies. Cats are a prime example of a pure carnivore that humans raise with no issues. While dogs are omnivores like humans, you don't see them packing up to take down a field of corn to eat. But now I feel like I am starting to preach, so let's move on from that side of the subject and let people's own morals take them in the direction they want to go. Bella laughed at me. Yeah, you did go a little soapbox there. But, back to the main point, I think the Cullens may be other. There are just so many little things that added together make me think they are more. I chuckled. Well, as I am dating Edythe Cullen, I can guarantee she is more. As you put it, I have found changes in myself too, Bella. But I need to work through a few more things before I am ready to tell you and Charlie about it. Just know that I will always love you no matter what, sis. She looked like she wanted to ask more on that subject, but thought better of it and let it slide for now. Though knowing her, she was filing it under her, to be addressed again at a later date, folder in her memory. So, I take it you know Edward as other. Was it from running into him today? Not really. I have always thought he stood out more than would be considered normal, but the other day at the beach, I heard some reservation boys talking and then got Jacob off to the side and asked about it. They have a legend they call the Cold Ones, but after hearing that the Quileute think they are descended from wolves, I took it with a grain of salt. When I brought it up to Edward on the drive back from Port Angeles, we talked about it. I don't know, but he feels dangerous but not bad to me, and I really do like him, maybe more. Downing the last of my hot chocolate, I put my cup on the end table and looked directly at Bella. So, what are your plans then? I want to keep seeing him and see where it goes. I don't think he will hurt me, he is too worried about it. But I also know a part of him wants to. Wow, I sound like a borderline masochist who gets off on being in danger, hearing it out loud like that. I gave a deep sigh. I can't say I am thrilled that you are in danger, but you know I will stand by any decision you make until I see it's hurting you more than you will admit. And even if he is Edythe's brother, I will return any pain he causes to you with interest, even if you hate me for it. Don't act like you wouldn't try the same if Edythe hurt me. I added when I saw her back get all stiff when I threatened Edward. Fine, but don't take things too far. I don't want to be in a position where I have to choose between the two of you. She drank the last of her cup and stood up. Well, my hair is dry now, so I'm going to get some sleep. We still have school tomorrow. She grabbed my coffee cup and went to the kitchen. I knew she was probably looking through the freezer and cupboards to plan tomorrow's dinner. She liked to do that the night before, so she knew if she needed to stop at the store on the way home. I walked up to my room and gathered my bathroom supplies, and then took my own shower. I had to smell good for my late night visitor. Chapter 67. The day at the mall. When Edythe arrived that night, she told me about Bella separating from Angela and Jessica to go to a bookstore and her getting lost when trying to regroup with them. My stomach sank when she told me that Bella had come across a group of drunks that were wandering the area and how they had started to corner her. She didn't hide anything from me, telling me about the group and their past deeds. Luckily, Edward was near enough to intervene. That was when I learned that Edythe's brother had a bit of a stalker side to him. My mind went back to the night I smelled something in Bella's room. Looks like I needed to have some words with him and set some ground rules. I mentioned this to Edythe, and she asked me to go easy on him and explained that his true reason for being in her room was to desensitize himself from her scent, not to get his rocks off as a voyeur. I didn't know if I fully believed her on that point, me being a guy and all, but I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt until we talked. The fact that Bella was Edward's singer and all that meant, had me ready to move her back to Phoenix at first, but I knew it was far too late to try and avoid it. I tried to dampen my big brother feelings and partially succeeded, for now. So, what does it mean that she knows about vampires now? I remember Carlyle saying being a human and knowing of the supernatural was dangerous. Edythe sighed. For now, we are in a bit of a gray area. We can claim that she will be turned, but at a later date, to prevent there being issues with us living here. That will work on everyone but Arrow of the Volturi. He has an ability like Edward and me, but much stronger. He can read every thought you have ever had with a touch. Wow, that's got to be a jarring experience. It's our memories that make us who we are. I wonder if he changes a little every time he does that. Edythe shook her head. From what we have heard, he started with his ability just like us, but as he aged, he got stronger, which is how our abilities usually work. If he were old enough, his own personality would remain supreme. Unless he tried it on someone much older than himself, I would imagine. But as I was saying, if he touched Edward and saw how against he would be in turning Bella, then it would take a lot of convincing to make him believe she would, in the end, become a vampire. We talked a little bit more about inconsequential things, but eventually I fell asleep in her arms. The dream started in a spot I hadn't seen in a long time. I was excitedly getting dressed because today, we were going to the mall. When I went downstairs to eat breakfast, my least favorite person was sitting at the table. Johnny, Mom's boyfriend. He always looked at me with an expression of ridicule when we were alone. The many times I had heard him tell my mom all about the things they could do and the places they could go if it weren't for me. When she found out that I had heard them one time, she went ballistic on Johnny. It took him weeks to worm his way back into the house with all kinds of promises to change and be better. But his idea of being better to me was to tell me how I could be better, eat less, exercise more, and find friends that I could stay with. I secretly, in my heart, hated her a little bit for letting him come back. The drive to the mall was filled with my mother questioning me on why I wanted to go today so badly, but I refused to tell her. It was my secret, and I really didn't want to say. But when we got to the mall and parked, I had a feeling of dread and tried to run away from the entrance. No matter what I did though, the automatic doors kept getting closer, and they would slide open and closed like the mouth of some hungry beast waiting for us to enter and be eaten. In my dream, I begged my mom to let us leave, but it was like she was hearing the opposite of what I was saying, smiling and holding my hand as we entered the mouth-like doors. I was pulled from my dream by someone gently shaking me and whispering words I didn't understand, but the tone was loving and worried. I opened my eyes and saw Edythe was there, holding my head to her chest and rocking back and forth, trying to soothe me. I clung to her with all my strength, and to my childish shame, I started crying in short broken sobs, unable to stop. I was just making it worse. What kind of girl wants a nightmare-riddled crybaby for her boyfriend? Even with all the muscle I had now, I was still the little fat crybaby inside, begging for his mommy to get up off the ground and comfort him. To make matters worse, apparently, I had made enough noise that Bella heard and opened the door. I couldn't see her, but I bet she was surprised to see Edythe there holding me as I cried like a child. Edythe spoke over my sobs. I got him tonight, Bella. But you are welcome to stay until it passes. I felt her come closer. No, if you are here, he will be okay. She then kissed my head and whispered, I love you, Thomas. Then returned to her room. It felt like hours before I was able to pull myself together and stop crying. But now I was emotionally drained and scared that I had just ruined my relationship with Edythe. I was trying to think of a way to tell her I would understand if she wanted to leave me. Edythe was still holding me when she spoke. You know, even with your mind shielded in your natural form, I can still hear your thoughts if they are loud enough. This doesn't make me think any less of you. It does hurt me to see you hurt so badly, but I know it isn't because you are weak, it's because what you went through was so horrible. Losing my parents to a sickness took me 30 years to get over, and to this day, I still hate hospitals. Maybe that's why I never took an interest in medicine like Edward. Hearing this, combined with my emotional exhaustion, I started talking. It was my idea to go to the mall that day. My mom was very hardworking, and she always felt guilty that she didn't spend enough time with me. So, she made a personal ritual for herself. My birthday would be the only time she would completely block the rest of the world out. No matter what, she would take a week off work for my birthday. She always told me that for that whole week, she worked for me and no one else. No emails, no phone calls, not even any side projects, just her family. She made an exception when she fell in love with a man named Johnny. She wanted him to join us and be together as a family. He was nice enough at first, but as time went by, it seemed like I became a bother to him. Competition for my mother's attention. He would ridicule me about my weight, about my clothes, that I liked playing video games, anything he could. When Mom found out, she blew up about it and made him leave, even though I could see that it made her unhappy to not have him around anymore. I swallowed and continued. He found me one day walking home from school, and told me that I was the reason she was unhappy now, that if I asked her to let him come back, it would be all better again, so I told her that it would be okay even though I still hated him. My plan that year was to make her so happy that she wouldn't be sad if Johnny left again. I saved up $500, including my birthday money, and begged her to take me to the mall. I planned to ditch them and go to a jewelry store to buy a heart-shaped locket with our birthstones combined as the front and a picture of me and her etched inside. I had called for it to be made, but I needed to go there in person to give them the picture and pay for it. I left them in a clothes store looking at ties for Johnny and made it to the jewelry store and almost got back before they noticed. I met them outside the clothes store when they came out looking for me. I told them I got bored and just came out here to people watch. The store was on the second level of the mall, and the jewelry store I went to was on the third. We decided to leave not long after that, and just got off the escalator to the first floor when we heard the popping sound. Right after that, people started to scream and run. Johnny was ex-military and said it sounded like gunfire. We were huddled around one of the small shops in the middle of the aisle when we made a run for it. Johnny was pulling me, and I couldn't keep up because I really was very overweight for my age. When he saw people start to pass us, he kicked my leg out from under me, causing me to make everyone near me fall to the ground or slow down. I was hurt pretty badly by the crowd. I had a broken leg, a broken arm, and 3 broken ribs. One had almost punctured my lung. I don't know how, but my mom managed to find me shortly after that, and was trying to help me hide when she was shot 3 times by one of the shooters. He was about to kill me when he was killed by a responding police officer. I later found out that it was the police officer's 3rd day on the job. I had been in the hospital for almost a week before my statement was taken, and I told them that Johnny tripped me. Unfortunate for me, Johnny had happened to have his picture taken as he carried an old lady out of the mall on his back. The papers had dubbed him a hero for taking the time to help a stranger. And just my word that he tripped me wasn't enough to charge him with anything. I asked them to look at the cameras, but they said it would look bad if he were a hero and rewarded by the police, and then later found to be responsible for my injuries. The detective told me to keep it to myself for the sake of everyone. Chapter 68. The brother talks. Edythe Pav. I snuggled further into Thomas's embrace as he cuddled me, finally giving into his exhaustion and falling back asleep. As I listened to him tell me about his past, I wished I could still cry. It felt wrong to sit there and listen to such a heartbreaking story with a stony face that was unable to show the emotions I felt inside. I reached out with my mind and looked for Edward in Bella's room. Once I entered his mind, he realized it and reached for mine so we could talk. We did this rather often when we were newborn vampires, but less so in recent years. You heard, I assume. I asked him. I did. It was a tragic tale, one I doubt he has told anyone in its entirety. Maybe not even Bella. He would be too afraid of losing her. As stupid as that sounds to me, well, they both are still emotionally young. Though Bella is much more mature than Thomas from what I have seen. You say that, yet they are more mature than we are in the emotions that we have buried for over 80 years. We can't stand on the moral high ground just because we can hear most everyone else's thoughts and have been able to for so long. Hearing the emotion through others and feeling the emotion ourselves is very different, I have come to understand. Besides, they are both nothing like what we normally hear. I have talked to Bella a good bit, and she surprises me constantly. I bet it's no different with you. I heard the sigh from the other room. Yes, she never reacts the way she should. I have come to the conclusion that however she will react to something, it will be the opposite of what I expect. I am going to ask her to join me in my meadow this weekend, while you are at the dance. I think she needs to see me in the sun. To see me at my least human moment, as you call it. I bet she handles it as well as Thomas did when I showed him. I will warn you though, I have never been as afraid of rejection as I was at that moment. It felt like I would shatter if he rejected me. Edward collected his thoughts. I am glad you found a good man, sis, though it's not fair he is the one I want's brother. I can't threaten him if he hurts you. Do all the protective brother things I should be doing. I chuckled wickedly. Just be thankful that goes both ways. When he put together that you have been in her room most every night, he went a little red in the eyes for a moment. I was prepared to watch him bust in there looking for you. If he knew the true danger I am to her, he would be after my life. I would be, if the situation were reversed. Have some faith in yourself, brother. Bella does, and so do I. But still, plan on him having a talk with you tomorrow. His experiences make him more focused on his emotions when it comes to family. He will not hold back on you just because you are my brother. Well, I bet he will, but not much. What a fine mess we both have become, you and I. I felt him starting to leave my mind, so I shared a quick, love you, with him and then I withdrew from his mind. My mind wandered as I reveled in the feeling of warmth Thomas was giving me while in his embrace. A girl could get used to this. One thing I did decide on that night, though. I would be going to Denver one day soon, alone. There were things that needed to be set right. Morning. Thomas' paw of waking up with Edythe in my arms was a wonderful experience for me, but it had to be so boring for her. Locked in someone's embrace, unable to move or adjust from the little pains being too still would cause. When I brought this up, Edythe assured me she could remain in any position with no discomfort for any amount of time needed. She just used the time to go through her thoughts and just enjoy the closeness we shared. I was partially convinced, but there will always be a little voice in my head that thinks she is just being considerate of me over herself. So, I would just make sure to do the same when I have the opportunity. That morning, I woke up, did my bathroom stuff, and then joined Edythe in the kitchen. Greeting her with a good morning kiss now that I brushed my teeth and eating the 3 eggs she made for me. It felt a little weird to me this morning to touch Edythe. I guess her core temp rose to nearly match mine since I was holding her so close last night, so there wasn't such a contrast as I had become used to. As I ate, I pondered the lightness I felt in myself. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Was it the emotional release from last night affecting me? The relief that Edythe had seen me in such a pathetic state and stayed with me? Or the fact that I had finally told someone it was my fault we went to the mall that day? I don't know why I always held that back, but I couldn't admit to my aunt that I was the reason her sister died. My growing knowledge and logic said one thing, but my emotions said another. Logically, the gunman killed her. Emotionally, I was the reason she was there to be killed. Once I was done eating, I cleaned the plate and the pan, as Edythe grabbed my backpack, and we held hands as we went outside. She kissed me again with the intent of leaving for home, but as Jasper wasn't there waiting for us, I reached for her and deepened the kiss to more than just a goodbye peck. She pressed her body against mine, and we lost ourselves in the kiss. Eventually, a short cough broke us out of the little world we had created between each other during the kiss. As we separated, she gave me another little peck kiss and left for home with a, "Bye Jasper, you guys have fun. See you at the station." Jasper just waved at her and gave me an amused look. "You do realize, you have several, big brother, speeches coming your way, right?" I smiled back. As a big brother myself, I would be disappointed if they weren't coming. "I have one to give today, myself." Jasper laughed. "Well, mine will be simple. Don't do anything permanent with her, until you're married. There, done. Now let's go exercise. I feel a mighty urge to throw you around the forest for a while today." I rolled my eyes but ran next to him as we took our usual path. After running a short distance, I had to ask the question that was burning in my brain. "Jasper, can you explain the vampire body to me a bit? When I first kissed Edythe, I worried a bit about the venom affecting me. Vampires only consume blood, but something must keep your bodies lubricated, I guess is the word. I feel saliva when Edythe and I kiss, but will it lubricate the whole body? I'm asking now to know what to prepare for, after we marry, if she will have me at some point in the future." He kept his eyes straight ahead as he answered, "I am not much for the medical side of our physiology, but I can see why asking either of the men who are medically inclined would be an intimidating thing. You bet your ass, I want to ask a girl's father and brother if she will get wet enough for sex one day, about as much as I want to die." When we got to the edge of the forest, Jasper started walking and continued the subject. "In Denali, Alaska, there is a coven that, like us, survives off animal blood. 3 of their members, Tanya, Kate, and Irina, are known to have relations with human males. So, any physical intimacy should be no problem between you and Edythe, after marriage. As for the venom we produce, it only gets produced in the act of feeding, extreme hunger, or biting someone, from what I understand. Venom is the reason for my scars, it is the only thing our bodies can't fully recover from without decades of time. So, your scars will eventually fade away, right? Yes, if I live long enough. Now, we are here, so let's start with the training." The next hour and a half was an exercise in flight on my part. Jasper seemed intent on showing me the many ways a vampire can throw me through the woods. The only reason I spent more time on the ground than in the air during the training was that, in the end, it was taking me longer and longer to get up. Other than that, I was in the air. One thing I did notice in all my time on the ground was that I had an audience today. It was a small red fox with a squarish face and a short muzzle. It must be so small because of coming out of winter hibernation. Its eyes were squinted and more intelligent than I would expect, but I just chalked that down to me imposing my own thoughts on the little thing. Chapter 69. Understanding First Class. That morning was nothing special. However, Alice did inform me that I had to go to her house for the final fit of my suit for the dance. She and Rosalie had collaborated on everyone's outfits, and there was no way I was crossing those two at the same time. I walked Alice to her class alone, as Jasper didn't come to pick her up today for some reason. During our walk, we noticed that the main topic of conversation today was that Edward and Bella had arrived at school together in Edward's car. It was a bigger story than when Edythe and I showed up together. I couldn't wait to tease Bella in class. The rest of the day was what I had come to think of as normal for me now. I focused on Edythe more than the teacher in math. Lunch was spent together with her family, minus Edward, because he was with Bella again. Edythe informed me that they were doing the 20 questions game. I just chuckled about that. After the lunch bell rang, I gave Edythe a quick kiss and headed for gym class. Then came my last class of the day and my first opportunity to speak with Edward. I spent a lot of time working on my stance about his practice of being in her room without her knowing. It bothered me, but from what Edythe told me, it did serve an important purpose. Had I found out about this when Edward was ignoring Bella during the day, I would have told him to keep his presence as absent at night as he did during the day, without her permission. She shouldn't have to suffer his absence in perceived solitude while he watched her at her most vulnerable. But it seemed they were moving forward with their relationship, so I needed to be calmer about it. Deep breath, large exhale. Calm. Bella likes him, and he is Edythe's brother. Emmett and Edward walked in together moments later, and the whispers started. My increased hearing caught Bella's name in several conversations, so I was sure Edward heard even better. Duh, he can't shut off the mind reading. Bet he hears more than he wishes. After class started and enough time passed that everyone was focusing on the teacher, I spoke at a volume one was sure Edward could hear, but no one else nearby could, except maybe Emmett. I need to understand your reason for being in her room without her knowing at night. I was able to smell your scent on the rocking chair in her room, facing her bed. I saw his lips move just a bit a few times until I was able to pick up what he was saying. Nod if you can hear me at this level. I waited for him to get a bit clearer and then nodded. After that, I could see his face take on a thoughtful look, and then he would begin to open his mouth, only to close it as if he was hesitant to speak. Finally, he spoke. I want to assure you that I have never used any of my abilities to purposefully catch a young woman in a compromising position. Especially never Bella. I nodded for him to continue, giving him the benefit of the doubt. Let's face it, if he wanted to see Bella naked, he only had to watch through any girl's eyes during gym class in the change room. I told myself. He continued after my nod. I heard Edythe tell you about Bella being my singer, but I truly doubt you can understand just what that means. Maybe on some level you can understand intellectually, but no one understands who hasn't found their own singer. As if he realized he was making a case for me to object to their being together, Edward stopped talking for a moment and changed the topic a bit. My purpose of being in her room is to drown myself in her scent, so I can gain a level of immunity. I do agree that it is an infringement of her privacy, but I also assure you that I would never take liberties with her. I turned to look at him with a bit of disbelief in my eyes. We are guys, Edward. I don't care how old you are. Sex is never far from our minds. Should I have really said that to my girlfriend's brother? The snicker from Emmett told me he was listening in on the conversation as well. Edward thought a moment. I am not saying Bella is not desirable, but the draw to her blood is much stronger than my biological urge to mate. With the temptation of her blood being absent, I will admit that my thoughts can be occasionally erotic. But as it stands right now, when I am in her presence, keeping my urge for her blood at bay drives any thoughts such as that out of my mind. He then turned to look at me. I would expect you to keep such actions at bay as well. My sister is a good girl and was raised to marry before acting on such inclinations. To our upbringing, your actions with my sister already border on the disrespectful, or more aptly described, scandalous. She tends more towards the openness of this generation, but deep down, she will still expect you to take responsibility for any actions you take. I got a bit defensive there. After all, he made it sound like I could possibly force myself on Edythe. But I did have to remind myself that their mindset was rooted in the early 1900s. Still, I had to point out, Edythe has the strength to make her thoughts on the subject known. However, the situation with Bella is more reliant on your control, not hers at the moment. I took a moment to wonder if our extravagant wording was a result of conversing in Spanish or the subject we were discussing. Because I really didn't talk so sanctimonious normally. Formal? Yes, that's the way we seem to be talking. Before we could say more, the end of day school bell released us for the day. Edward quickly spoke as I gathered my stuff. Give me until this weekend. I will tell Bella and only enter her room with her permission from that point forward. I simply nodded at Edward, signaling the end of our conversation for now. Then I gathered up my stuff and walked out of the class into my locker, where Edythe was waiting for me. I smiled at her. Hello gorgeous, mind giving me a lift to your house? Alice says it's time for my final fitting. That won't be a problem. I am proud of the way you handled the conversation with my brother. I laughed. You hear it all from his mind or something? She giggled. Nope, he can sense when I'm in his mind. I was listening along with Emmett. He had trouble controlling his laughter. The formal way you two spoke to each other gave him fits the whole time. I smiled at her. Yeah, it pushed my Spanish vocabulary a good bit. So many words that have different inflections to them. We started to walk towards the parking lot, so I took her hand. I will give it to him, though. The poor guy has it rough, from what you have told me. Finding his singer, falling for her, and unburying emotions he hasn't felt in decades, if ever. Then comes along a guy trying to steal his sister from him at the same time. Then said guy grills him over his actions with his sister, who is the singer. Like I said, rough. Edythe squeezed my hand, like you have it any easier. But thank you for looking at things from his point of view. In the parking lot, I saw a group of boys grouped around a red BMW M3, drooling between excitedly talking about the vehicle and taking pictures. Parked next to it was Jasper's bike, with Alice climbing up behind Jasper at this moment. Once she was settled, Jasper didn't bother walking the bike back because of the crowd. Instead, he pulled forward onto the sidewalk and maneuvered around until he had a straight shot at the road and gassed it. I chuckled as we made our way to Edythe's Roadrunner. Your family could have its own car show here in town. Why such extravagant vehicles when you are working so hard at blending in? It's a vice. We can move so fast on our own that having to sit in a slow-moving vehicle is a form of torture for us. So, we all tend to splurge on our mechanical transportation. All I could do was shake my head because I completely understood. Being able to travel at the speed I could in my tiger form makes every extra moment in a vehicle seem boring in contrast. Even walking in my normal form was irritating at times. Then I thought about Bella's truck and laughed again, yet another reason to feel bad for your brother. Bella loves her slow old truck. Chapter 70. A kept man. As I stood perfectly still doing my time as a mannequin, I continued my conversation with Alice and Rosalie. So, UV sunblock won't work to stop the sparkling of your skin in the sun, how about other lotion options? Alice shook her head as she stood on a stool working on my jacket's shoulder seam. Anything thick enough to work makes a person stand out, and feels disgusting. It would have to be something unnoticeable out of the sun's rays but still block the rays when direct light hits us. But at least no artificial light makes us stand out so far. Rosalie added to the conversation, we have heard of a vampire who is working to understand just what spectrum of light makes our skin shine. But he isn't having much luck so far. She turned her head toward Alice. Alice, I am not sure I approve of the button color. It matches his shirt, but shouldn't they match Edythe's dress color instead? I think it's better to have his suit match him more than Edythe. After all, it's his outfit, and he is not an accessory to Edythe's outfit. The guy needs some individuality. As they discussed my suit, an idea struck me. If you can't look like everyone else under the sun, why not make everyone else look like you? This drew their attention. Rosalie asked, what do you mean? Well, it's just a thought, but could you make a skin cream that reflected the light the same as your skin and brand it with some actress or singer? They love to stand out, and people would quickly follow the trend. That should cover you for a few years, and we all know the trends tend to resurface every 30 to 40 years or so. If the skin cream was also beneficial to skin health, then it would stick around even longer than that. Both vampires were now looking at me with a surprised look. Alice was the first to speak. That is actually a really good idea. The surprise in your tone of voice is a bit insulting, Sprite. I frowned at her. She just stuck her tongue out at me and then gave me a smile. Rosalie still looked thoughtful. The idea has some merit. I would have to think of someone to research it. There are several talents connected to our agency who could push the product. The rest of the fitting, I could tell that Rosalie was slightly distracted by the idea I had blurted out. I hadn't spent much time with Rosalie, but I could already tell that she struggled with the segregation from people the most. Edythe explained it as Rosalie's need to be the center of attention all the time. Hiding didn't go well with that mindset. About 15 minutes later, I heard the words I had been hoping to hear for a while now. Okay, Thomas, we are done. I will have this ready for you by Saturday afternoon. Do you want me to have it delivered to your room or will you change here? I looked at Alice with a bit of shame. Just leave it here. Since I don't have a car to pick Edythe up in, we may as well start out here. Besides, I know Esme will want pictures of me and Edythe in our outfits. I wouldn't think of denying her that by having Edythe pick me up and going to the dance from my house. Charlie won't care, and Bella has plans. Oh, I will need a few pictures to send to Aunt Renee, though. Alice laughed. You have no idea how happy that will make Esme. Edythe's first dance. I can barely contain myself. Alice's voice reached a rather high note at the end of that sentence. The girls then left the room so I could change in privacy. The pout on Edythe's face when Alice and Rosalie kicked her out of the fitting room was still in the back of my mind. So, I wanted to get back to her quickly. I was a bit surprised at how easily I had become comfortable at the Cullen house, making my way down the stairs and to the living room without hesitation. Maybe it was because of how welcome everyone made me feel. I sat on the couch, next to Edythe, and she slid closer to me to snuggle, finally. I didn't think they were ever going to let you out of that room. I pressed my lips to the crown of her head, so needy. Esme smiled at our interaction. Will you be staying for dinner, Thomas? Afraid not, Ma. Esme. Charlie has been working nights a lot lately, and this will be his first time home for dinner in a while, so Bella wants to cook his mother's beef stroganoff recipe for him. She asked me to be there for a family dinner. I was still finding it hard not to call Esme ma'am, but I was working on it. I also didn't want to go further into what Charlie was dealing with. He was called to the nearby town the other day to help with what he called an animal attack on an oil worker. I didn't want to bring that up during this pleasant atmosphere. That girl is so kind and considerate, I just can't wait to meet her. What are your plans for your birthday? I understand it will be a week from tomorrow. The question caught me off guard. I don't know just yet. Bella was planning something. Probably just a nice dinner and cake. I am not one to celebrate it much recently. I finished lamely. Esme looked at me sadly. I do understand. Well, as much as anyone who hasn't gone through what you did can understand, anyway. But birthdays are about celebrating life, so I do hope you will allow us to give you some small gifts for yours. I started to panic a little at that. I was beginning to understand how extravagant these immortal, insanely rich vampires could be. You don't really need to trouble yourselves on my account. Bella and I have a deal where we give gifts that are handmade or hand-me-downs. Expensive gifts would have been a hardship on our families over the last few years. Besides, it's the thought that counts. Esme nodded her head. I understand that perfectly. A house I create and have built is much more meaningful than just purchasing one and giving it away as a gift. My mind went a little blank there. House. As a gift? Surely not. We haven't even known each other for more than a few months yet. It was just a figure of speech. Yeah, that's all. Rosalie then managed to change the subject by bringing up my idea about a skin cream to make humans shine like vampires under the sunlight, and the previous subject was dropped. Jasper was the first to point out that he doubted the male population would want to sparkle like a disco ball. But it was, at the very least, a plausible explanation if a vampire was seen accidentally. Eventually, it was time for me to head home and spend time with Charlie and Bella. During dinner, Charlie let me know that the reading of my mother's will would take place the Friday after my birthday. But the secretary from the law firm made sure to have it in the afternoon so it wouldn't interfere with the celebration of my turning 18. Charlie laughed about how insistent she was about the timing. That night, Edythe let me know that she would not be at school next Monday or Tuesday due to the sun. But Alice predicted no issues for the rest of the week or weekend. But where Bella and Edward planned to go would have patches of sun peeking through the clouds, if not blue skies. I guess I can ride with Bella those days, but I will miss you. Edythe snuggled in closer to me. I like hearing that. I have a few other things to take care of, but I should be back to be with you Tuesday night if that's okay. Of course, I told her. But my mind was starting to wander, as again, my lack of vehicle had me relying on others. While the idea of being a kept man was somewhat appealing, it was also just a bit humiliating. I think it's time I start looking for a car. I am mechanically inclined enough to get a fixer-upper, so it shouldn't be too hard. Besides, I could rely on my 100-plus-year-old mechanic to help me out. I knew how much she enjoyed working on cars. I wonder if I could find a roughed-up diamond we could polish together. From what I have heard, nothing tests a relationship more than working on a mechanical project together. I do seem to remember a few arguments with Renee and Phil that started because they were working on the same project. I slowly closed my eyes and allowed myself to fall asleep, holding on to Edythe. Chapter 71 Tigerback Ride. My eyes opened as I woke up in a position I didn't normally sleep in. Lying on my back, Edythe had her head resting on my chest. It was Saturday, the day of the dance. I was a bit nervous but also excited at the same time. Morning, Tiger, you were quite the restless one last night. It seemed you would never get comfortable. Edythe said without looking up at me. She ran her hand over my abs. I smiled and stretched my arms out, then I reached down and gathered her onto my chest. Morning sunshine. I had some weird dreams. Showing up to the dance without pants on. Then there was one where the dance was attacked by some big worm-looking thing you were trying to shoot with a bazooka. The last one, a blonde chick, showed up with something she called Mr. Pointy, looking to kill all the vampires in the school. She laughed. The no pants at the dance sounds interesting. But then I would have to compel every girl there to forget what they saw. The last one sounds suspiciously like that old Buffy TV show. We laughed and lay there for a little longer before I forced myself to get up. What time does Alice have a schedule to be there to get ready for the dance? She wants us there at 2 but no later than 4. She is going way overboard. The dance doesn't start until 7. Well, let's not bring out the little gremlin in her. She is excited for your first dance, so she naturally wants it to be perfect. The only thing that would get her to loosen the reins on us would be if Bella and Edward made a last-minute change of plans and came along. Edythe smiled and then broke out into a chuckle. Yeah, that's not happening. Bella is so excited to be going to the meadow that she woke up almost earlier than Charlie this morning. You can probably hear her pacing the time away in the kitchen right now. Good thing you told her you wanted to sleep in because of the dance tonight, or she would probably come woke you up already. I gave her a quick peck on the lips. Well, why don't you go calm her down while I shower and get dressed? Edythe stood and nodded her head, but she was thinking, I would rather join you in the shower. Your hands wandered while you were tossing and turning last night. Bella isn't the only one who needs to be calmed down. Rather than say that out loud, she quickly made her way downstairs. I walked to the bathroom, unaware that if I had been able to read her mind, this morning could have been a memorable one. The rest of the morning was spent in distraction. Bella was trying to stay calm about her first outing with Edward. Edythe and I were trying the same for the dance. Random discussions left Bella the opportunity to give up some embarrassing stories on me, and in turn, I gave some up about her. Around 1 o'clock, Edythe turned to Bella, Edward is here. Then there was a knock at the door. I was finishing up the dishes from a rather large lunch we had because we all knew that the evening would be long with little opportunity to eat. Bella wished us a fun evening and reminded us to get pictures for her and Renee. I told her to be careful and then told Edward to bring her back safely. Shortly after that, I was hiding a smile at the tortured look Edward was giving the old red pickup as they had to sit and wait for it to warm up before Bella could get it in reverse to pull out of the driveway. Moments later, Edythe and I left out the back door and headed into the forest. We separated for a moment so that I could undress and make the change to my tiger form. The time it took for my shape change to happen was decreasing. It seemed much more natural to pull all the fire into my body now, where before it was like I had to lead it where to go. Now, when the flame reached my chest, it dispersed to the rest of my body on its own. Edythe gathered the backpack from me and put it on her shoulder. She then reached out to run her hands along my back, petting my fur. You are getting bigger all the time. I wonder where you will stop. You are already big enough to ride like a horse. Enjoying the feeling of my girlfriend stroking my back, I thought towards her, jump on, let's see how fast I can move. Edythe's eyes sparkled, are you sure? I don't want to hurt you. We have time to play around, and I have no problem giving my girl a tiger back ride. Unable to hide her excitement, Edythe swung a leg over my back and tried to get seated in the middle. I took a couple of slow steps and thought, move a bit farther forward, closer to my shoulders. She did, and I moved a few more steps in experimentation. After getting used to the added weight, I'm going to start moving faster. First, a walk, then a light lope. And if you are comfortable, then maybe a run, sound good. I feel like a little girl again, this is so cool, Edythe said in excitement. I just let out a chuckling noise through my open mouth and started moving at an increasing pace. Her added weight really didn't seem to hinder me much, but I knew there were several actions I couldn't take with her on my back. After a bit, I began a slow run as I twisted through the forest. It was then that we hit our first real problem. Ease up with the legs, Edythe. I can feel my ribs creaking, and it's getting hard to breathe. She relaxed her thigh muscles. Oh, sorry. It's harder to steady myself when you're moving fast. Lean forward and see if you can get a handful of fur just under my neck, my skin is loose enough there to help. Just don't squeeze too hard or pull out my fur. I felt her do as I said, and it wasn't too uncomfortable, but at least she wasn't squeezing me to death now with her thighs. I went back to a decent pace again, and she had no trouble holding on. As we got closer to her house, how about trying full speed for the last little bit? Edythe was quick to respond. Go for it, I'll jump off if there are issues. The last couple of miles, I went all out. Edythe had to hold on tight, but she was also making sure not to hurt me. As the trees blurred by, Edythe let out a whoop of pure enjoyment and laughter. In moments we were at the stream near the house, and I leapt the gap with no issues. This caused Edythe to shout out in joy once again, and when we burst through the tree line, it was into a crowd of vampires that stood in their backyard looking in our direction. I slowed down under their gazes and stopped for Edythe to jump off my back. Alice was the first to say something that looked like fun. You have no idea, but sorry, sister dear. I am the only one riding my boyfriend. Edythe said with a sinister smile to her sister. Alice pouted but gave up quickly. Fine, be stingy. Everyone laughed at the pout on Alice's face, but soon spit up, going back to what they were doing. The exceptions were Emmett and Jasper as they approached me. Emmett was the first to speak. Let's fight. I could see the childlike delight in his eyes and nodded my head. Then I looked over at Edythe and thought, tell him, I'm good with it. No biting and no claws on either part. When she relayed my conditions, both Emmett and Jasper looked excited at the prospect. Let's take this to our training field, Emmett. No need to ruin the forest so close to the house. Jasper then looked at Edythe. Will you come to help us communicate? Before Edythe could respond, Alice stuck her head out the patio door. Not a chance, we need to start preparing for the dance. Rose and I want to experiment with your hair a few times before deciding how to do it. Let the boys play, you get in here. With a resigned sigh, Edythe answered Jasper. I will watch from your minds when I can, but you can communicate just fine if you keep the needed responses simple, or just yes or no responses. Here, take his backpack so he can get dressed after you're done playing around. She gave me a quick hug around my neck and then headed towards the house. Have fun. Chapter 72 Fighting Emmett. The three of us ran for a few miles to a small opening that showed torn up ground and tree stumps that looked splintered. Jasper placed my backpack in an out-of-the-way place and spoke. We come out here because Esme gets a mite bit upset if me and Emmett get too worked up. Emmett laughed. That time I tore your leg off, she got so mad that she kept at me for the next 2 years. Jasper gave a chuckle. I tried to convince her you were just learning the extent of your strength and how to hold back, but she wasn't having it. All I could do was look between the two and shake my head. Tearing someone's leg off and then laughing about it. Guess that story the Quileutes have about vampires being able to reattach limbs was true after all. Emmett gave me a smile. Don't worry, I'll go easy on ya, kid. He then walked over to a tree trunk that was lying in the clearing, picked it up, and tossed it into the woods where it landed with a great crash. The tree had been about 4 feet thick at the broken base, and well over 50 feet long. My whole body shuddered. He tossed it like it was a stick in the backyard. Jasper broke me out of my introspection. I'll sit it out for the first bit, I want to see what you can do. I nodded and turned all my attention to Emmett, who was kicking up dirt with his right foot like a bull getting ready to charge. I stepped farther away from Jasper and found a good even spot. I centered myself and then pawed at the ground, throwing dirt like Emmett to signal my readiness. With no hesitation, Emmett charged at me. I could tell he was moving very fast, but from the little I remembered from my last fight, he could move faster, so I stayed ready for an increase to surprise me at some point. One look at his charge with his outstretched arms showed me he planned to get his arms around me and use his strength to overpower me. I was waiting for his speed to increase and nearly missed that he was very close to me, so I waited until he was almost on me before I jumped sideways and struck out with my paw. My plan was just to push him off balance, but I underestimated my strength and his speed. Emmett took my blow to his side and suddenly shot off into the woods, knocking a couple trees over in the process. It must have been comical to see a tiger suddenly sit down and stare at his paw in surprise, because Jasper started laughing uproariously. Just a moment later, Emmett came trotting back into the clearing, brushing himself off and trying to fix his hair. I'm okay. Boy, that surprised me. Jasper, still laughing, asked, How far before you could stop yourself? A bit over 100 yards into the woods. Would have been more, but I hit a tree that could support me. Emmett laughed. I shook my head. That was supposed to be just a shove, I must not have controlled it enough. Also had to have been his speed added that sent him so far. I stood up and asked if Emmett was ready to continue. It came out as a questioning growl that Emmett couldn't respond to. So, like we had done earlier, I pawed at some dirt to signal my readiness. Emmett just gave a laugh and did the same. Then he charged me. This time, he was coming slower and had his arms closer to his body for defense, I figured. When he got in range, I struck at his chest with better strength control than I used before, and he was stopped in place. All his forward momentum was stopped with my blow, but he didn't get pushed back much. I went up on both hind legs and struck down with one paw, but the other I struck out behind him at waist level and pulled his leg out from under him. Emmett was now pinned to the ground under my left paw. He had protected his chest with his arms, but now they were both being pressed to his chest as he was trapped under my strength. He struggled to free an arm so he could grab my leg and exert his strength to free himself. As he was struggling, I brought my head close to his face and snapped my teeth a couple of times, and then gave a chuckle. I backed off again, letting Emmett get back to his feet. I was very pleased with myself so far. Gods, that was scary. You're a monster, Thomas. He was still laughing like a kid at the circus, having the time of his life. This time, he placed one arm in front of himself and let his other hang free, then he started kicking at the ground some more. Changing it up, I kicked at the dirt and charged him myself. When he saw me coming, he braced himself and watched me closely. When I got close to him, I dug my back claws into the ground and pushed off towards his right side. He was protecting with that arm, and if he wanted to get me with his free hand, he would have to reach across his body first. What I didn't count on was that instead of reaching across his body, he spun his body and landed a swinging backfist on my chest. Because I was still in the air, this caused me to flip a few times before I hit the ground in a tangle of 4 legs. I let out a roar of surprise and checked myself for injury. I started to stand up and checked for any obvious pain, but just felt a dull ache in my chest. I shook myself as I stood. But then, before I knew it, I felt another impact from the side. Emmett had charged me and managed to get me on my back, using both hands to hold me there. Each of my paws gripped in his vice-like grip. Laughing loudly. Too obvious that time, Thomas. How's it feel to be pinned? I gave him a flat stare and a light growl, but then I remembered. What happens when you pin your cat to his back with your hand, and he can't reach you with his front paws? I gave him my best tiger smile and then tightened my stomach muscles, bringing my 2 back feet between us, and then kicked up and out with all the strength in my hind legs. Emmett was suddenly shot into the air over 100 feet up before he paused a second, and gravity brought him back to the ground. By the time he landed, I was back on my feet, and I bowled over his bouncing body, pinning him face first to the ground yet again. Just to drive the point home, my breath was tickling the back of his neck. Clap, clap, clap. Jasper drew my attention, and I released Emmett. Emmett grumbled, I could have gotten out of that one. I was about to push myself off the ground and clobber him again. He was standing and brushing dirt off himself as he finished talking. You may well have been able to, but in a real confrontation, he wouldn't have been just breathing on your neck waiting for you to gather your thoughts. He would have popped your head off with those teeth. Emmett shrugged, then he laughed. Flying was fun. I could see forever up there. Ha ha ha. Jasper laughed with him. Yeah, that one surprised me. I forgot how flexible cats are and just how powerful their back legs can be. If he had been using his claws, it could have been much worse. Even if you did use your true strength. What did you use? About 34. Yeah, I didn't want to hurt the guy just before the dance. Rose would kill me. You think his claws can do anything to us, Jazz? Jasper turned to me. Can I see your claws, Thomas? I held out my right paw, pads up, and tensed it so the claws were out. It was a sight, even to my eyes. My pads were black, but the claws were a pearl white. They were hooked for pulling and sharp enough to cause Emmett to give a slow whistle. Jasper pulled his sleeve up and ran his forearm softly across my index claw. It sounded like a nail on a chalkboard and left a line on Jasper's skin. That was just sliding my arm over the claw, no pressure at all. Yeah, his claws will work on us. Wicked. Emmett responded. Chapter 73. The dance. We spent a couple of hours wrestling around, careful not to hurt anyone permanently. We were also keeping an eye on Jasper's arm to see how long it took to heal from the light scratch he gave himself. So far, it hadn't healed at all. Jasper called a halt to our fun. Well, guys. I think I need to call it here. If I am going to avoid mistakes, I need to hunt before the dance tonight. All the random emotions and blood-pumping teenagers will put a strain on my control for sure. Emmett nodded. Me and Rose hunted last night. There was a herd of deer 2 valleys to the southeast. You should be able to pick their trail up easily enough from there. As they separated, Emmett walked over and took up my backpack. Let's head back. You will have to use Edward's room to get ready. No worries about having to use his soap. Edythe got a copy of what you use at home and stocked it in there. Shaking my head at the attention Edythe gave me, I resolved even more to never take her for granted. Emmett started running, and I took after him, excitedly bounding off trees here and there. When we got close, Emmett stopped and set my backpack down, then gave me a wave and headed to get himself ready. I made the change and put my clothes on, then started my own way in. Once there, I was met by Esme. Thomas, dear, I have a meal ready for you. It's at the table. I placed it when I saw Emmett come back. I'm glad to see no one got hurt. I smiled and shook my head. You put yourself through too much trouble for me, Esme. But thank you regardless. I really do appreciate it. Oh, nonsense. You go eat. You are going to need energy for the dance tonight. Knowing that to keep resisting would be rude, I quickly went to the table and seated myself for a wonderful dinner. Once I was finished, Esme showed me to Edward's room, and I started to get ready. Emmett wasn't playing around. Edythe had gotten me a full set of toiletries, soap, shampoo, toothbrush and all. While I had been in the bathroom, someone had brought my suit for the dance into Edward's bedroom. The outfit was a white suit jacket and pants with a black silk shirt that had a very small collar. The pants had been fitted to my waist size, so no belt was required. My shoes were a black snakeskin dress shoe style. It was finished off with a tie that matched my eye color, sky blue. Looking into the full-size mirror, I had to admit that the ladies had done me justice with this outfit. It was form-fitting, enough to still show off my build even while covering it. As I was looking at myself in the mirror, I heard a wolf whistle come from the doorway. Looking good. I am glad we adjusted the shoulders, it really brings out the cut of your muscles. Alice gave her opinion. I have never worn anything like it. You and Rosalie are amazing, Alice. Yes, we are. But you have your shirt collar too tight, it's a more relaxed fit tonight. Come here, I'll fix it for you. Tight collars and ties are for prom. I can't decide if your prom tux will be a dark green bordering on black or a glossy black. Rose and I will have to do some computer designing before we decide. I laughed. Let's get through the dance tonight first, little fairy. Edythe may not want to go to prom with me if I mess up the dancing too badly. Ha, she will just make you practice more before it. Just resign yourself to it. It's easier. I just shook my head. Let's get you downstairs. Time for pictures before Edythe finishes up. Then it's time for couple and group photos. Alice said as she turned, not even looking back to see if I was following her. The next 15 minutes were devoted to Esme taking pictures of me from several angles. I was as patient as I could be through the whole thing. Even managed to convince her to let Alice take a picture with me and her. She even asked for Renee and Bella's email so she could send them some pictures. Just after the guys' group photo, I heard a noise at the top of the stairs and looked up. Time stopped, and all noise faded from my ears. Her dress was a sky blue that exactly matched my tie. The sleeves barely held onto her shoulders, leaving a large portion of her neck and chest bare. The front was a very low V that covered her breast but left no doubt that she was well endowed. A 3-inch belt of the dress color circled her waist, showing off her slender build. The dress fell to just above her knees, and on her feet were a pair of pearl white shoes. Her bronze hair was all pulled to her right shoulder in waves and curls that looked like they would bounce with every step she took. She had that vulnerable look in her eyes again that made me slightly ashamed. I really needed to convince her that she had nothing to fear from my reaction to anything she does. I found myself climbing the stairs just as she was descending them. We met halfway, and I took her hand in mine. I have no words to tell you how you look to me right now. Part of me wishes I could transform so you could see my thoughts. The only words that come close are that I am a very lucky man. I kept her hand and walked her down the stairs, not even hearing the clicking of the cameras. The next bit was a blur to my mind. I only had eyes for Edythe and just paid subconscious attention to my surroundings. I didn't really collect myself until I was seated in Edythe's car, headed for the dance. For probably the 300th time, I said, "You look amazing, Edythe." She smiled at me. "You do as well, Thomas. I am going to have to keep my mind reading under control tonight. I don't want to accidentally hear the other girls' thoughts about you and ruin the night with bloodshed." I smiled at her. "No reason to go that far, dear. We lose nothing by them looking at us, and they only gain the image of what they can never have. Now, if someone tries to touch you, all bets are off and your dad will have a busy night of resetting broken bones." About the time we both promised pain and/or bloodshed on anyone foolish enough to ruin our night, Edythe parked in the school parking lot. Rose drove her red BMW along with Emmett, and Alice drove Edward's silver Volvo for herself and Jasper. Both couples had arrived earlier than we did and were probably already inside. I took Edythe's arm, and we slowly walked towards the gym. Music was already reaching us from a distance. It sounded like the song, "Rock Your Body," and I was glad it was out of the way before I got there. I was not a Timberlake fan, though I knew my music taste wouldn't get much play here tonight. When we finally got to the gym and walked through the doors, I was severely disappointed. TV shows and movies had me thinking it would be some grand-looking place to dance, and the surroundings would be extravagant. But what I got was a trip to the gym with a few banners poorly drawn and painted, a Kool-Aid bowl sitting on a fold-up table with a stack of plastic cups next to it. The music was just a sound system plugged into the gym speakers, and some students selecting the music. Even the doors to the event were being held open by garbage cans. Well, at least my date is perfect. Looking around some more, I picked up some small things I had missed with my first glance, like a group of tables for people to rest at when not dancing, though many people were just sitting in the gym bleachers also. The next song to come over the sound system was one that had me directing Edythe to the dance floor for "Hero" by Enrique Iglesias. It was a good, slow song, and I couldn't wait to get my arms around my date. The rest of the evening was, to me, a memorable one. In a sort of fuzzy, greet everyone and forget them moments later sort of way. Moments did, however, stand out, like seeing Ben and Angela. Edythe and I spent a bit of time with them, complimenting their clothes and talking about the music choices. Watching Rosalie and Emmett dance was a bit frustrating. They were textbook perfect at whatever dance moves they were using. Classic and refined were the words that came to mind when watching them. Alice and Jasper were a treat to watch. Alice seemed to find a beat in the music no one else heard, that she wanted to dance to, and went all out with it. Then, the next song, she was the perfect partner to Jasper's lead. Lauren and Tyler were leading the list the chaperones had of not letting those kids out of our sight. They were also leading the grinding group of students that tried to rub their bodies together no matter the song. Jessica and Mike were all over the place, 1 minute grinding, then the next keeping formal distance from each other. It made more sense to me when Edythe pointed out that both their parents were part of the chaperone group. During one of the more rowdy songs, the press of bodies and noise started to get to me, and I had to get some distance. Edythe caught the signs and led me up the bleachers so we could look down on the dance from a distance until the feeling passed. She leaned into me and wrapped her arms around my waist. My right arm was around her shoulder and holding her close while my left hand was running over her arm. We stayed like that for a while, not talking, just taking comfort in each other. Watching all the people on the dance floor, I was starting to get my inspiration for my painting. That, along with Edythe in my arms, finally got me settled down. When my heart finally settled down, Edythe lifted her head to meet my eyes. "Feel better?" "I do. Thanks for coming up here with me. I hope I didn't ruin the night with." Edythe interrupted me. "Don't even finish that sentence. You are who you are, Thomas. This is just a small part of it. Don't let it hold you down or define you. Accept it and work with it until it's no longer so large in your mind. We lapsed into a comfortable silence and watched the dance for a bit longer before rejoining it. Chapter 74. After the dance was over, and Edythe had driven me home. I stood on the porch and watched her drive off, knowing I would be seeing her later tonight. Once the taillights faded, I opened the door and found Charlie sitting in his chair watching ESPN highlights. How was your evening, kid? Charlie tore his attention from the TV and looked over at me. Wow, you look great. I hope you got lots of pictures to send to Renee. I laughed. Yeah, Mrs. Cullen got tons of pictures. She even asked for Renee's email so she could send them directly to her. I had a great time with Edythe, but honestly the dance itself was kinda lame. Not sure I want to go to prom if it's going to be in the gym. No worries there. The prom is always at one of the fancy lodges just outside of town. Much better atmosphere. I was a bit relieved. Bella upstairs. Charlie looked up the stairway and his face turned a bit red. Yeah, she said she wanted to go to bed early, but she seemed awfully keyed up though. Like she had plans or something. I looked closer at Charlie. I can't claim to know him the best, but he seemed a bit off tonight. What's with that face, Charlie? He sighed. I disabled her truck. So, she couldn't sneak off. I chuckled and shook my head. You worry too much. She won't be going anywhere, and she sure won't be sneaky in that truck. He gave me a helpless look. Me and her mom were that age when we started to sneak out and get into all sorts of situations. I don't want her to follow in our footsteps. The tighter you try to hold her, the more you restrict her, the more she will resist just because she can, Charlie. I know I am young, but I have found the best way to get through to Bella is to tell her what you think and feel, then work out a compromise that you can both live with. If she starts feeling trapped, then she will bolt for the door as fast as she can, and she is nearly 18 as it is. Besides, she is more afraid of turning out like Renee than you are. No one our age thinks they want to be like their parents. He gave another deep sigh after taking a swig of his beer. I know, kid, it's just hard. I just got her back in my life, and I want to be the best parent I can be. But, I find myself trying to force her to go the direction I want her to. I laughed. As much as I am looking forward to being a parent myself, I am not looking forward to feeling like you do right now. I am going to head up and get changed. The dance gave me a good idea for my class painting. Want me to grab you another beer before I head up? Nah, think I'm done for the night after I finish this one. Night, kid. I went upstairs and paused at Bella's door, knocking softly. You awake, Bells? Come in, Thomas. I opened the door and stepped inside her room. She was sitting on her bed, and I could tell what Charlie meant by her looking keyed up. For someone who wanted to go to bed early, she sure seemed hyper. I laughed. No wonder Charlie thinks you're trying to sneak out tonight, sis. You have a terrible poker face. Telling him you're going to bed early with that much excitement on your face. How was the meadow? She looked me over for a moment. You look very handsome, Thomas. You better have gotten. I interrupted her. Pictures for Renee. I know. Everyone keeps reminding me. I gave Mrs. Cullen Renee's and your email so she could send a few of the hundreds that she took tonight. Now, back to my question. She thought for a few minutes. It was great, very sparkly. Edward and I talked a lot and just laid in the sun for the afternoon. We agreed to start going out officially. He told me that you knew about him and his family. Why didn't you tell me? She had a slightly betrayed look in her eyes. Mostly because it wasn't my secret to tell and there are consequences to knowing. Besides, does it matter what he is? Does it change the way you feel about him? She sat up a little straighter. No, he is a good person. Then everything will work out fine. I will leave you guys alone then. Watch out for Charlie. I'm sure he will check on you before going to bed himself. Good night, sis. Good night, Edward. When I spoke, Bella's face went red, and she glanced at her closet. I just softly laughed as I closed the door. When I closed my own door, I was left in a bit of a quandary. I had never owned such nice clothes, and I was hesitant to throw them in the dirty clothes hamper. Hanging them up didn't seem right either as they were dirty. So, knowing that if anyone saw me doing it, they would laugh. I chose to carefully fold the outfit and gently placed it in the dirty clothes hamper. Shaking my head at my own ridiculous actions, I pulled on a shirt and shorts, then grabbed my sketch pad and started to outline my idea for my painting. I planned to depict that music to me meant the gathering at the dance. A mesh of actions all brought about by the music and the resulting dance. I left the room vague as I didn't feel that the gym walls and bleachers fit my idea of the freedom dancing represented. I also decided that drawing a band singing on a stage fit better than a simple stereo wire to speakers. I had just started to outline some people when I heard Charlie come up the stairs. A smile broke out on my face when I heard him softly open Bella's door to make sure she hadn't escaped out the window. Then my own door opened, and Charlie poked his head in my room. "Night, Thomas." Before he could close the door, I quickly asked, "You going fishing in the morning?" "Yeah, I'm meeting up with Harry Clearwater." "You need me to cancel?" "Actually, I was wondering if I could join you. Just remember, it will be my first time, so I will be a lot of hassle." Charlie smiled. "I would really like that, Thomas. I will see you in the morning then." He closed the door, and once I heard his own door close, I opened my window and returned to my bed and continued drawing. About 40 minutes later, Edythe came through the open window and closed it behind her before joining me on the bed. She picked up some of the discarded drawings around me and started to look them over. "These are really good, Thomas. I can't wait to see the finished painting." I put my pencil down and looked off into space, my mind wandering. I am having trouble with the clothing. It doesn't seem right to have everyone in the same style of outfits. I am thinking of changing it to major periods of fashion change. Going to take some online searching for that though. Most women's fancy clothing didn't change too much before the early 1900s in my opinion. Maybe material did, but not the overall cut and appearance. Well, there was the corset and basket dress look. Guess the more I think about it, the more different it does look. We sat in silence for a bit longer before I asked her, "What do you plan to do for the time you can't be in the public eye the next few days?" "I need to go take care of some things related to some of the companies we run. I plan to take Jasper as well, so I'm sure Alice will want to come along. Luckily New York will be under cloud cover tomorrow evening for our visit, and Monday our next stop will have no sun until Tuesday afternoon. Then I will be back here with you Tuesday night." I put my sketch pad down and looked at Edythe. "How do you interact with the board members of the companies? I bet they don't take well to being told what to do by someone who looks so young. My mother was always complaining about her looks and gender being a hindrance in the workplace." Edythe smiled. "I worked that one out in the 50s. All the board of directors are told the Cullens are a bunch of traditionalists who prefer to live in seclusion. But there are positions of power granted to the younger generations of the family. Edythe Cullen is a position that a smart young female member of the family is promoted to. Same with all the names of the family. We tend to use names of the others to confuse people who interact with us multiple times. For instance, if it is a pharmaceutical change, then one of us girls goes as Rosalie Cullen, or Edward can go as Carlisle Cullen, or vice versa. If it is about law or business strategy, then it's either Edythe or Alice Cullen." I frowned. "So anyone can claim to be Alice Cullen and gain entry to the company so long as they are young and know the name?" "No, there are certain codes that change continuously. And if someone shows up out of the blue claiming any of the founders' names, there is a protocol set up to contact the house and request clarification. We actually had a CEO try that with his illegitimate daughter. They tried to transfer some company assets into his name. We had to make that punishment public enough for the other board members to learn from it, but not so large that the police would get involved." As interesting as this information was, I was starting to get tired, as evidenced by a large yawn. Edythe collected all my discarded drawings and my sketch pad and placed them on my dresser. "Let's get you to bed. I want to get all the cuddle time I can to hold me over until Tuesday night." I pulled her into my embrace and sleepily told her about my plans to go fishing with Charlie in the morning. Somewhere in her reply, I fell into a dreamless night of sleep. Chapter 75 Denver Trip. Edythe Pov. After several long, intense, good morning goodbye kisses to start my day off, I ran home to meet up with the rest of my family. When I got there, I was surprised to learn that Rosalie and Emmett would be joining the trip to New York. Rosalie was in a hurry to get the sun sparkly lotion idea that Thomas came up with moving forward. Jasper was finalizing his latest book, and Alice wanted to tell the major boards to start pulling out of the housing market because there would be a major stall in home sales. She wanted all our assets out of the housing market before the end of 2006. Time to shift to renewable and natural energies for the foreseeable future. She also wanted to play around with a streaming-based network for movies and on-demand shows. My business couldn't start until Monday afternoon in Denver, so I was just along for the ride the first half of the trip. I was going over notes that some investigators had been sending me. With Wednesday being the memorial for the Denver Mall shooting of 2001, the local papers had been running articles on it. However, this year, for some reason, the articles started to ask some uncomfortable questions about the handling of some video footage near the food court and several of the actions taken by the police at the time. Even the local hero Johnny Track was coming under fire with pointed questions being asked about why the elderly lady he rescued had been on his back instead of in his arms, especially if he was running away from gunmen. With Jasper and Rosalie flying the plane, it fell to me and Alice to keep Emmett entertained. Watching the return of the king had Emmett spending the remainder of the flight wishing for a world where he could fight to his heart's content. I don't know, Emmett, fighting is fun and all, but having a peaceful world where I can be with Thomas and the rest of my family sounds better to me. I objectively told him. But it's so boring. There is hardly anything challenging in this world. Alice broke in, and if that challenge put Rosalie in mortal danger, would you be okay with that? I wouldn't let her be in any danger. I am strong enough to protect us both. Emmett smiled. Alice wished for just that moment to be able to share some of the visions she had guided the family away from where they lost part of their family. Sure, the visions didn't come true, but she still had to watch them get hurt and die in some of them. She didn't think even Edward and Edythe truly understood what that felt like. After all, they could look away when they wanted to. Alice had to follow the vision all the way through to see how to stop it. Watching their family get torn apart and set on fire for stopping in the wrong town wasn't something she could just shrug off. She felt all the emotions from those visions and couldn't let them affect her outwardly. All she could do was react to her visions after seeing the whole thing and try to root them away from the danger. She knew that Emmett would just shrug off anything she told him along those lines, so she just kept quiet. That was just Emmett. Maybe that's why Jasper is my mate. He can help me deal with the emotions with his power. Once they landed their private jet, everyone split up to go their separate ways. I went to the main corporate office to set up meetings with everyone I could think of in Denver. Once that was done, Alice took me clothes shopping for Thomas, and we talked over tuxedo and dress options for prom. I was trying to come up with a way to give Thomas the clothing we chose for him when Alice just overrode my plans with a simple statement. Just break into his room and put the clothes away. Don't say anything about them. Let him grumble a bit, and he will eventually get used to new clothes appearing occasionally. Now, these slip-on shoes, do you think they would come off in a shift? I laughed at the simplicity of her idea and decided to go with it. From what I have learned about the will reading that will take place at the end of the week, Thomas will not be touchy about money for a good long while. His mother, having lost her husband while pregnant, took out hefty insurance policies on herself in case something happened to her, and she had been an investment genius. If things had been different, she would have been a top earner under the Cullen umbrella. All of that, plus the policy in place for Thomas, was a custodial account held by our firm Thomas's mother worked for. The care money sent to Thomas's guardian was the dividends earned. Most of the increase in funds went back into the market to continue the growth of his inheritance. Best of all, Nancy Raizel had set it all up under a trust so there would be little to no taxes to worry about. Once the group left New York and headed for Denver, I found myself reading over the work record of the detective that shut down the request by Thomas to look at the recordings to see if Johnny had committed any chargeable acts during his escape from the mall. This could have been blown off as just an act of a survivor in the heat of the moment and the public eye back then. But now, with time between the shooting and the fact that Johnny readily claimed all the rewards for his heroism, things would look bad indeed if there were recordings of him hindering others from escaping. Closing the lead detective's file, I opened the file from the responding officer who saved Thomas's life. He had been decorated and put on the fast track in the department, even making detective in a near record time of almost 2 years. But his recent progress was stemmed by his new boss, who just happened to be the lead detective whose file I had just put down. Maybe some bad blood there. I added our police liaison officer to my meeting list and made a note to have the lead detective investigated thoroughly. The next file I picked up was a full investigation into Johnny Track. His early life was typical: divorced mom and dad, bounced back and for between the two. Some petty theft as a teen, a couple of trespasses, and minor assault charges. Then he went into the military, U.S. Army Cavalry Scout to be exact. Looks like he did one tour in Operation Iraqi Freedom and then was recommended not to re-enlist. The investigator found out that he would have been dishonorably discharged if his enlistment hadn't been up. Basically, they didn't want to do the paperwork to kick him out, just told him not to come back. So, he fucked up bad enough they didn't want him back, but they let him off with an honorable discharge. Typical military laziness. He started working in corporate security once back in the States, for the same company as Thomas's mom. That's how they met, I'm betting. From his picture, Johnny is a very handsome man, outwardly at least. The next bit she read made her smile widely. He still worked for the same company. Demanded a raise back when he had the hero tag placed on him after the shooting, and is currently the deputy chief of security in the building she was headed to this very day. I motioned for Alice to join me, and we began to discuss ways to make his life miserable. That afternoon Alice and I entered the lobby of the firm. Walking to the front desk I simply said, "Miss Edythe and Alice Cullen here for a meeting with the director." "Yes ma'am, the director is expecting you. Just a moment and your guide will take you to the conference room set aside for you this evening." I was wearing a gray women's suit, pants and jacket with a sky blue shirt, and Alice went with the more traditional light gray skirt with a white long sleeve shirt along with a light gray suit jacket. Our presence was drawing the usual attention, but we both blocked it out, and kept our faces neutral as we waited for the guide. When the guide did finally show up, I ignored his attempt at small talk and Alice also followed my lead. Once we made it to the glass conference room, our guide stepped in and announced us. "Mr. Peterson, your 1 o'clock is here." He then held the door as Alice and I entered. I walked directly to the head of the table and shook Mr. Peterson's hand, then sat at the head of the table, showing I was the one taking lead in today's meeting. When Mr. Peterson greeted Alice, he asked, "When this firm started, I met a woman who looked remarkably like you. Would that have been you, mother or elder sister?" "She was Edythe Cullen at that time." Alice gave him a smile. "That would have been my older sister. When I told her of the role I was taking today as Alice Cullen, she asked me to check on you and see if you followed her advice." The man smiled. "You can assure her that I did indeed act on her advice, and it has made me a very happy man." Edythe did a quick read of Mr. Peterson's mind to see that in her last visit, Alice informed him that his then fiancée was cheating on him and was also trying to get insider information to give to her paramour to ruin the company. Finally, she told him to keep an eye out for a blonde high school acquaintance who had fallen on hard times. This led to his later marriage and happy family life. As the members of the board that had assembled sat down and gave their attention to the head of the table, Edythe began to speak. "My first and most important bit of business we shall discuss includes an employee of this firm. Mr. Track, your security deputy, is about to come under immense scrutiny for his actions during the 2001 mall shooting. It has come to the attention of the Cullen clan that he was responsible for the death of many innocent people in an effort to ensure his own survival. This meeting marks the beginning of his downfall. By the end of my efforts, I expect him to be living on the streets of Sun Valley, the poorest neighborhood in Denver, with nothing but a noodle strainer to keep the weather off his head." Chapter 76 Code Black. Edythe Pav. I waited for my words to register with the people in the room. Also on the agenda will be an investigation into the lead detective Nutter of the shooting and the first responders' actions. I have personally heard a first-hand account of the events from a survivor, and it leaves much to be uncovered. But why drag up old business that has no real effect on this company? If it's as you say, and Mr. Track's involvement will put him in a bad light, then why not simply fire him and be done with it? A man in his mid-30s stated in a bored tone of voice. I turned my attention to him. "And you are Jonathan Franklin, public liaison head." He shot me a humoring smile. "So, you would be the one in charge of explaining to the public and shareholders how this company employed a man of such character that he sabotaged other victims in the mall shooting to ensure his own safety. Then, with no investigation into his claims of being a hero rescuing little old ladies. That was in fact him using her as a shield to protect his back from the attackers. We gave him a promotion and a significant raise. Not to mention that there is evidence that he was responsible for Nancy Raizel's death, if only indirectly. At the mention of Nancy's name, several people suddenly had an outraged look on their faces. That seems to have struck a chord. Did anyone ask themselves why Mrs. Raizel died while her son was hospitalized, and Mr. Track, who was dating Mrs. Raizel at the time, was lauded as a hero, though he didn't emerge with those he went to the mall with? Mr. Peterson punched a button on the table's intercom. Melanie, I need a code black on Mr. Track in security. All access stops immediately. He is to be searched, and all clothing removed and destroyed. Provide him the gift shop jumper and have him ejected from the building with prejudice. Don't bother replacing his shoes and forget to return anything in the pockets of his clothing. Mr. Franklin's face turned white as Mr. Peterson ended his statement. Surely we didn't have to go so far. Johnny has done good work for the company. This could have been a simple fire and forget situation. I made a noise to gather everyone's attention back to myself. I don't think you quite understand. We are here in the role of Edythe and Edythe Cullen. You will fire Johnny Track and hold any and all forms of pay for whatever reason you can come up with. Be it theft of stationery or falsely marking his time card, I don't care. It will happen. Further, this company is now at war with lead Detective Nutter, and any member that can get him slapped down by his superiors or internal affairs will receive a bonus. Detective Randall will, however, get a helping hand when needed. Not to the point we hold his hand and pave his way, but to the point we help him realize his potential so long as he stays true to the expectations of his duties. Mr. Franklin quickly asked, who is Detective Randall? He was the first responder who saved multiple people by taking down one of the shooters and assisted in the takedown of 2 more of the 3 remaining gunmen. Doing all that on his 3rd day on the job as a police officer. He was quick to make detective, but now he is facing the jealousy of his faster than normal rise. The intercom buzzed, and Edythe pushed the speaker button. Go ahead. Mr. Peterson. I'm here, Melanie. Go ahead with your report. Yes, sir. It seems that Mr. Johnny Track took this week and next for vacation. He is not scheduled to return until April 8th according to HR. Mr. Peterson looked at me with a questioning glance, to which I nodded. Okay, Melanie. Thanks for letting us know. But I still want him cut out of our system. Shut off his company phone and any company cards he may have. Also have a meeting set up in the security department to let everyone know his new status. I quickly wrote on a piece of paper and slid it to Mr. Peterson. Leave his company phone on, but monitor his calls. I want everyone in the company who tries to contact him after his status is known to be watched and their work history evaluated. After quickly reading the note, Mr. Peterson glanced around the table. You know what, Melanie, give me a few moments and I will meet you in my office to go over the actions to be taken. Hold off on everything but locking Mr. Track out of the system until then. Also place his name on the blacklist for all companies we are in association with. Anyone who hires him gets our undivided attention. About 2 hours later I was parking the rental Ferrari at the Denver Mall parking lot near the entrance. I waited for Alice to finish her phone conversation to Jasper before getting out. That's right, Jazz, Detective Randall at the 6th District is who you want. Take the evidence I sent you to him and let him know it's in regard to the pedophile ring he has been looking into. With what's on there, he should be able to get Franklin to turn state's evidence on the rest of his friends. Moments later, she hung up with Jasper and looked at me. We need to do some better screening with our hiring practices. HR really dropped the ball with things lately. As I opened my door to get out, I thought of a good idea. Maybe we should have Edward do an update on the policy. He took psychology a few years back. He should be able to come up with a good psyche evaluation questionnaire for pre-hires. I stopped and looked at the mall, which was the place of nightmares for my love. I will be with you tomorrow, Thomas Pav Tuesday morning. I reached out and shut my alarm off. Sitting up, I rubbed my face and sighed. Feels so weird, waking up alone now. Still, I told myself internally, she will be back tonight. I half expected the nightmares to be out of control this close to my birthday, but they don't seem as bad now. I walked into the bathroom and used it before going back to my room and getting dressed. The weather was getting better, so I wouldn't look too strange running in just my shorts and a shirt now. I quickly went about my morning routine and walked outside and started stretching my legs out. I changed up my route a little, just for something new to look at, but still entered the forest at the same spot. Once I got to the spot Jasper and I usually spar at, I stopped and stretched my legs and lower back until my heart rate slowed down a good bit. Though I didn't hear any noise, something pulled my attention to a spot in the forest just behind me. What I saw surprised me quite a bit. It looked just like the fox that followed me around every once in a while, but it was much bigger. I would guess it was about 2 times bigger than the one I usually see. Thinking that maybe the one I had seen before was a child, I just shrugged it off. What I couldn't shrug off, however, was that this one was trying to sneak up on me. If you're looking for your kid, I haven't seen it today. The fox glared at me for a moment, then stood up from its crouched position and growled at me. Don't growl at me, it's your kid. You lost it, so go find it, don't come harass me about it. I don't know if it was the tone of voice I used or if it was just being territorial, but the fox seemed more angry by the second. It suddenly darted forward and took a snap at my right leg. Luckily, I was able to dodge to the side, and its teeth only got the bottom edge of my shorts. Unfortunately, it tore them nearly off me. Instantly pissed off and now having nothing but a ratty old workout shirt to worry about, I decided to teach this pint-sized throw rug not to mess with me. I shifted right in front of the little thing. As soon as I shifted, I let out a loud roar at the fox, who froze for a second. The smell of urine suddenly hit my nose as the fox gave out a loud, high-pitched scream-like yelp and sprinted off into the forest as if its tail was on fire. The occasional bark-like yelp became fainter as it increased the distance between us. Chapter 77 Wayland Forge. After school, and knowing Edythe was returning tonight, I was riding an emotional high as I made my way to the station for my evening workout. I knew that without Jasper there I wouldn't be getting an actual workout, but I still needed to keep up appearances. Plus, it was an opportunity to spend time with Charlie. I had a great day on Sunday learning how to fish. It was different from what I had seen on TV. He taught me to stream fish, and it was a whole different thing than fishing a lake or off a boat. He promised to take me out on Billy Black's boat one day this summer and show me how to fish that way. I had also met Harry Clearwater that day as well. He seemed a great guy, very chill. We talked a little, but not enough for me to learn if he knew about me or not. I got the feeling he liked the quiet of the forest and stream, so I didn't want to bug him too much. Though he did seem surprised that I knew Leah, well, that I had met her a couple of times anyway. He gave me an appraising look when I mentioned it, but didn't say much. I was about to pull the police station door open when Charlie came running out, making a beeline for his patrol car. I got caught up in his energy and followed him, but slid into the passenger side. What's wrong, Uncle Charlie? Without taking his eyes off the road, he replied as he pulled onto the highway. Someone found a body in the water just off the boat docks. The description fits Wayland Forge, the guy you and Bella met at the lodge a while back. Then he realized I was in the car with him. What are you doing? I can't take you to a scene like this. I smile sheepishly. You came running out of the station, and I just kind of got caught up in your pace. I wasn't thinking, but don't worry. I will stay out of the way. Before we got to the spot Charlie had been called to, an ambulance caught up to Charlie's cruiser, and they both pulled over into a highway pullout area where I saw Ken's patrol car parked with its lights on. Charlie got out, saying, "Stay with the car, Thomas." I got out of the car but obeyed Charlie and stayed with it. I strained my ears to hear what was being said, but the running water made it hard to make out too much. All I could make out was what sounded like, washed into a log pile, and multiple bite marks. Then a little bit later, I watched Charlie walking back up the trail that went to the riverside. He went straight to the ambulance. "Hey, Brad. The gurney should make it down the trail, and take a black bag with you. Bring the body to the station. I will see if Carlisle can meet you there." I looked at the sky out of reflex and saw that there was enough cloud cover for Carlisle to be out, and it would be dark enough soon that it wouldn't matter anyway. Charlie broke me out of my musings. "Let's head back, Thomas. I've got to start the paperwork." The drive back to the station was awkward. I am sorry about your friend Charlie. Was it a drowning? Did he fall in the river? Charlie let out a deep sigh. I don't think so. It looked like something got hold of him and tore. He paused there. I have known Waylon going on 30 years. He just sighed again, and we returned to the silence. Once we got back to the station, I didn't feel like going through the motions of working out, so I just stuck with Charlie but stayed silent. A while later, I watched the ambulance pull into the parking lot, but it went around back, and Charlie went through a door I had never been through before. I tried following Charlie, but he just held his hand up and shook his head. It was just a few moments after that, a dark silver Mercedes pulled into the parking lot, and Carlisle got out and reached into his back seat for a medical bag before making his way into the station. Evening, Thomas. Is Charlie in the back room? I smiled and shook Carlisle's hand. Yes, sir. He went in just a few minutes ago. I watched him disappear behind the door and waited in Charlie's office, trying to think of anything I could do. About 20 minutes later, both Charlie and Carlisle walked into the office in the middle of a conversation. Charlie was saying, "They sure look like human bite marks, like you said, Carlisle, but I don't know." Carlisle nodded. That was my first thought too, Charlie. But the depth of the bite is beyond what a human mouth can produce. Humans can't open their mouths enough to generate that kind of force. The arch shape and incisor morphologies are similar as well, but they are too wide, and there is more tearing than compression. Plus, it looked like anywhere from 3 to 5 different bites, though the overlap makes counting difficult. I am leaning toward a pack of dogs, though the lack of defensive wounds on the hands and arms leads me to believe they got him while he was asleep, or maybe they found him after he drowned. I will have to see how much water is in his lungs to know for sure. Charlie wrote down what Carlisle had said and sighed. Heaven knows Waylon was a drinker, so he could have passed out and been an easy target. I will have Jeff check the dock for his boat. We will probably find his jacket there as well. God knows he wore it everywhere. I stood up and walked out of the office to get Charlie a cup of coffee, and on my way back in, Carlisle passed me. It was good seeing you, Thomas, despite the circumstances. I should let you know that Edythe and the others should be back in an hour or so. Thanks, Carlisle. Drive safe, and I will see you later. I walked in and put the coffee cup in the spot on the desk where there was a ring worn into the lacquer from one sitting there so often. Not long after I sat down, Bella came in the door, eyes searching. When she found Charlie at his desk, she came over. Is everything okay, Dad? Charlie shook his head. We found a body today. It was my friend Waylon. She made a logical jump that I missed. Was it the same type of attack as the case you had to go help with last week? He got a light in his eyes and started to think about it. I don't know, but I can ask for a copy of their report and see. Good thinking, Bella. He reached into his drawer and pulled out a can of personal pepper spray and offered it to Bella. She looked at it and frowned, probably afraid she would try and use it, only to spray herself first. But Charlie's words made her take it regardless. It will give your old man some peace of mind. She took it gingerly, like it would go off in her hand just by holding it, and put it in her pocket. What brought you here anyway, Bella? Charlie asked. I was passing by with a friend and saw the extra cars, so I wanted to check on you guys. Well, let me finish this request for the paperwork from the other case, and we can head to the lodge to eat tonight. The meal that followed was not a festive one. Many people at the lodge were friends of Waylon. His boisterous nature made him stand out, and many would miss him. I felt sorry for Charlie having to answer questions the whole time he was trying to eat with us. I understood that people wanted to know what was going on, but they weren't the only ones to have lost a friend, and Charlie was trying to connect to his family to help with his sense of loss. I turned the subject over to my wanting to get a new driver's license after my birthday. The main reason I had held off was that it made no sense to get one when I arrived, only to have to get a new one after I turned 18. This turned into talking about me getting my own vehicle, and Charlie let it slip that he had been on the lookout for something he thought I would like. We kept the conversation going and changed to many topics, just trying to distract Charlie from the day. But once we got home and started to separate in the house to do our own thing, I noticed that Charlie had sat in the living room with a beer in hand and just stared at the blank TV for a while. Knowing that some things just had to run their course, I went to my room to continue my painting while waiting for Edythe. Chapter 78 Power Rankings. With my paint palette and brush in hand, I was moving to look at my painting from different angles, to make sure I had captured the effect I wanted on the different gowns the girls wore in the dance scene I had created. When I felt Edythe enter through my open window, I covered the canvas, put my brush in the cup I reserved for soaking my brushes, and turned to give my full attention to her. "Why did you cover it up?" I smiled at her. Call it an artist's reluctance to show anyone an unfinished product. If you see it and give me any feedback, it could change the perception I have of the idea. Then it would be our painting, not mine, love. I stepped forward to embrace this beautiful woman I had so missed over the last couple of days, but she didn't embrace me back. I held on to her but moved back to arm's length. "What's wrong, Edythe?" She had never not embraced me back during a hug before. Her eyes were wide, and her body felt completely stiff. You said. Then her body relaxed, and she returned my embrace and added some enthusiastic kisses to it. We stood there for a good 5 minutes, just holding each other. "I missed you, Thomas." Later that night, we lay in bed together and I asked, "Did your dad tell you about Wayland Forge?" He did. This is the first time an outside coven has come through since we moved here. Alice is mad at herself for missing them. But because there was no interaction, she had no visions of any of our kind coming through. We have had some friends come through a few times, but they knew not to hunt here. Emmett and Jasper wanted to hunt them down, but Carlyle said to leave it. He couldn't tell how many there were, but even at 3 vampires, it makes it an unusually large coven for carnivore vampires. That struck me as odd, but your own coven is 7 vampires, so it can't be that unusual. Actually, it is. Our coven is the second largest known to exist right now. The largest being the Volturi, and their numbers are constantly changing. They had 28 members last time we visited them, but from what we heard, there are 32 now. Though some come and go every few years. I was surprised at the large group. So why do you say the coven of 3 is so unusual? Most natural. Our carnivore vampires, as we call them, don't band together because they often end up fighting for domination over the others. Their aggressive nature requires a pack mentality of sorts. And seeing as vampires tend to see themselves as the top predator, they don't want competition. What about your coven? You have Carlyle as the leader, but he is not the strongest of your coven. In fact, I would think he would be one of the weakest in your coven, even with his age. Edythe smiled. We believe that our diet helps us all coexist peacefully. We are less aggressive and independent than the vampires that feed on humans. If I had to rate our coven by their strength, our danger level, Alice would be the most dangerous, next it would be Edward, followed closely by Jasper, and myself. Then it would be Emmett, Esme, Carlyle, and finally Rosalie. I whistled in amazement. I didn't think Emmett would rate so low on the power scale. He is physically the strongest of us and even stronger than anyone we have seen, minus a newborn, but his attacks are too simple and straightforward. Edward beats Jasper because he is reading your mind and knows what you are doing at the same time you do, and he is exceptionally fast. Jasper has been working on his own reactions, so they can be thoughtless, and that is how he beats me. Even if I'm in his mind, I am too slow to capitalize on his response time. Esme would be a vicious protector but unpracticed, Carlyle would hesitate to hurt anyone, and Rosalie would only fight to protect Emmett. If he died, she would be happy to follow him and give up this half-life, as she calls it. I thought my way through that and nodded my head. So, how are the Volturi able to handle a coven as large as 32? Just feeding that many should be throwing up red flags for the whole country, whatever country they live in. They are in Italy. Volterra, Italy to be exact, and they are the only vampires in all of Italy. We believe that one of the vampires in the Volturi has the ability to manipulate the relationship between vampires. She makes them feel at home as part of the Volturi, and since they like the feeling, it sticks. However, it is not so strong that she can compel like I can. Members can and do leave at times. Do all the Volturi have abilities? I asked with a yawn. Nearly all that I know of do. Keyes is the only leader who does not have one, and I think the 2 remaining wives are also powerless. Marcus can see bonds between people, so he knows when members are becoming discontent, and I already told you about Arrow's ability. The most dangerous vampires with abilities that I know of in the Volturi are the twins Jane and Alec. They are the main reason the Volturi are so feared, their offensive power is immeasurable. Jane can cause pain in anyone she wishes to with a simple glance, pain said to be so debilitating that you would wish for death to stop it. Alec is, however, the more dangerous of the two because he can affect a large number of people at the same time. He can take away all your sensory abilities or just the ones he wants to, leaving you helpless and unable to react to anything. That's some seriously overpowered abilities. I yawned again as I spoke. Edythe pulled my arms tighter around herself. Get some sleep, Thomas. We can talk more tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up feeling much better than I had the previous couple of days. I spent some extra time just holding Edythe before my bladder demanded that I start my day. As had become the norm, Edythe cooked my 4 eggs and had my backpack hung on a kitchen chair ready for her to take with her this morning. Jasper was waiting for us today, so we made our goodbyes quickly and then he and I started running. Once we made it to our usual spot, we started sparring as usual. Once we were done, we headed for the station and Jasper brought up a new training exercise he wanted to try. I do believe it is time to start using your tiger form more during our morning workouts, Thomas. You need to train in that shape as much as you do in your normal form. Maybe start with a game of tag or two, get you used to moving through the forest. I am down for that. But just in case, the first few times we need to take it slow. I don't want to lose focus and let my instincts take over too much. That British vampire, Henry, didn't get far when he ran from me. I was still a little worried for my friend in the back of my mind. Since we sparred this morning, we skipped the upper body workout and Jasper jumped on his bike as soon as we got to the police station, while I headed inside. Edythe's car was there, so I figured she was inside talking to Jerry while waiting for me. When I saw her, I went straight to her and gave her a kiss as I collected my bag, said hello to Jerry, then I went in for my shower. When I started to pull my clothes out of the backpack, I noticed that I had never seen any of them before, and for a second, I was confused. Thinking maybe some of Emmett's clothes ended up in my bag as a joke, I went ahead and put them on for lack of options. When I realized how well they fit, I knew they were not Emmett's. Figuring out that these must have been bought by Edythe, I just shook my head and made sure to remember to thank her. Being treated this well makes a man self-conscious. Chapter 78 Power Rankings. With my paint palette and brush in hand, I was moving to look at my painting from different angles, to make sure I had captured the effect I wanted on the different gowns the girls wore in the dance scene I had created. When I felt Edythe enter through my open window, I covered the canvas, put my brush in the cup I reserved for soaking my brushes, and turned to give my full attention to her. Why did you cover it up? I smiled at her. Call it an artist's reluctance to show anyone an unfinished product. If you see it and give me any feedback, it could change the perception I have of the idea. Then it would be our painting, not mine, love. I stepped forward to embrace this beautiful woman I had so missed over the last couple of days, but she didn't embrace me back. I held on to her but moved back to arm's length. What's wrong, Edythe? She had never not embraced me back during a hug before. Her eyes were wide, and her body felt completely stiff. You said. Then her body relaxed, and she returned my embrace and added some enthusiastic kisses to it. We stood there for a good 5 minutes, just holding each other. I missed you, Thomas. Later that night, we lay in bed together and I asked, did your dad tell you about Wayland Forge? He did. This is the first time an outside coven has come through since we moved here. Alice is mad at herself for missing them. But because there was no interaction, she had no visions of any of our kind coming through. We have had some friends come through a few times, but they knew not to hunt here. Emmett and Jasper wanted to hunt them down, but Carlyle said to leave it. He couldn't tell how many there were, but even at 3 vampires, it makes it an unusually large coven for carnivore vampires. That struck me as odd, but your own coven is 7 vampires, so it can't be that unusual. Actually, it is. Our coven is the second largest known to exist right now. The largest being the Volturi, and their numbers are constantly changing. They had 28 members last time we visited them, but from what we heard, there are 32 now. Though some come and go every few years. I was surprised at the large group. So why do you say the coven of 3 is so unusual? Most natural, are carnivore vampires as we call them. don't band together because they often end up fighting for domination over the others. Their aggressive nature requires a pack mentality of sorts. And seeing as vampires tend to see themselves as the top predator, they don't want competition. What about your coven? You have Carlisle as the leader, but he is not the strongest of your coven. In fact, I would think he would be one of the weakest in your coven, even with his age. Edythe smiled. We believe that our diet helps us all coexist peacefully. We are less aggressive and independent than the vampires that feed on humans. If I had to rate our coven by their strength, our danger level, Alice would be the most dangerous, next it would be Edward, followed closely by Jasper, and myself. Then it would be Emmett, Esme, Carlisle, and finally Rosalie. I whistled in amazement. I didn't think Emmett would rate so low on the power scale. He is physically the strongest of us and even stronger than anyone we have seen, minus a newborn, but his attacks are too simple and straightforward. Edward beats Jasper because he is reading your mind and knows what you are doing at the same time you do, and he is exceptionally fast. Jasper has been working on his own reactions, so they can be thoughtless, and that is how he beats me. Even if I'm in his mind, I am too slow to capitalize on his response time. Esme would be a vicious protector but unpracticed, Carlisle would hesitate to hurt anyone, and Rosalie would only fight to protect Emmett. If he died, she would be happy to follow him and give up this half-life, as she calls it. I thought my way through that and nodded my head. So, how are the Volturi able to handle a coven as large as 32? Just feeding that many should be throwing up red flags for the whole country, whatever country they live in. They are in Italy. Volterra, Italy to be exact, and they are the only vampires in all of Italy. We believe that one of the vampires in the Volturi has the ability to manipulate the relationship between vampires. She makes them feel at home as part of the Volturi, and since they like the feeling, it sticks. However, it is not so strong that she can compel like I can. Members can and do leave at times. Do all the Volturi have abilities? I asked with a yawn. Nearly all that I know of do. Keyes is the only leader who does not have one, and I think the two remaining wives are also powerless. Marcus can see bonds between people, so he knows when members are becoming discontent, and I already told you about Arrow's ability. The most dangerous vampires with abilities that I know of in the Volturi are the twins Jane and Alec. They are the main reason the Volturi are so feared, their offensive power is immeasurable. Jane can cause pain in anyone she wishes to with a simple glance, pain said to be so debilitating that you would wish for death to stop it. Alec is, however, the more dangerous of the two because he can affect a large number of people at the same time. He can take away all your sensory abilities or just the ones he wants to, leaving you helpless and unable to react to anything. That's some seriously overpowered abilities. I yawned again as I spoke. Edythe pulled my arms tighter around herself. Get some sleep, Thomas. We can talk more tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up feeling much better than I had the previous couple of days. I spent some extra time just holding Edythe before my bladder demanded that I start my day. As had become the norm, Edythe cooked my 4 eggs and had my backpack hung on a kitchen chair ready for her to take with her this morning. Jasper was waiting for us today, so we made our goodbyes quickly and then he and I started running. Once we made it to our usual spot, we started sparring as usual. Once we were done, we headed for the station and Jasper brought up a new training exercise he wanted to try. I do believe it is time to start using your tiger form more during our morning workouts, Thomas. You need to train in that shape as much as you do in your normal form. Maybe start with a game of tag or two, get you used to moving through the forest. I am down for that. But just in case, the first few times we need to take it slow. I don't want to lose focus and let my instincts take over too much. That British vampire, Henry, didn't get far when he ran from me. I was still a little worried for my friend in the back of my mind. Since we sparred this morning, we skipped the upper body workout and Jasper jumped on his bike as soon as we got to the police station, while I headed inside. Edythe's car was there, so I figured she was inside talking to Jerry while waiting for me. When I saw her, I went straight to her and gave her a kiss as I collected my bag, said hello to Jerry, then I went in for my shower. When I started to pull my clothes out of the backpack, I noticed that I had never seen any of them before, and for a second, I was confused. Thinking maybe some of Emmett's clothes ended up in my bag as a joke, I went ahead and put them on for lack of options. When I realized how well they fit, I knew they were not Emmett's. Figuring out that these must have been bought by Edythe, I just shook my head and made sure to remember to thank her. Being treated this well makes a man self-conscious.
Another tale fades into the silence. But here, in the fantasy audiobook library, stories never sleep. Subscribe and return when your heart seeks adventure. We'll be waiting.